Do you feel weird when you see yourself, thinking, that isn't me, that's not who I am? This episode discusses the hardships of having gender dysphoria and what you can do to achieve euphoria. We'll be having repeat guests Reyel Inocencio and Rocky Rinabor, as well as aspiring singer Stef Aranas for this episode of Trans Speaks. And we're back with our second guest speaker for today, Miss Stef Aranas. Hello, nice to meet you. And this is my co-host, Zoe.
Hello.
And Jelly.
Hi.
Ayan, gender dysphoria. So, but before that, Miss Steph, kindly introduce yourself for our viewers.
So, hi guys, I'm Stef Aranas. I am a musician and filmmaker. I just graduated from UP Diliman, and I am an alumni. I am an alumnus of UP Babaylan.
Nice, that's so amazing. Someone with so
also,
much
I'm a trans
talent.
woman, and my pronouns are she, her. Sorry.
Yeah, that's totally fine. So, should we dive into the deep stuff that scares us? Just kidding.
That scares us. The biggest question.
Yeah, the
that
biggest
we all-
question.
Uh,
So yeah, first, for our listeners out there, they may not be aware of what it means. Could you tell us what gender dysphoria is?
Well, gender dysphoria is a psychological discomfort or it's discomfort caused by your identity not aligning with your assigned sex at birth. So this could be triggered by environmental factors. It could also be genetics. It could also be due to your own feelings about yourself. So it's that general feeling of discomfort due to that misalignment, so to speak.
Right, that's so interesting.
now that we've touched on gender dysphoria, this might be a really personal one, and I hope you're open with us about this.
Yes.
Mhm.
Well, I chose this topic, so that's on me.
That's true.
I mean, thank you for having the courage to come
Yeah, to
To
forward
talk
and,
about it. Mhm.
and since now that we've defined gender dysphoria, I want to ask: do you still experience gender dysphoria today?
Absolutely. I think gender dysphoria is just something I've had to adapt to as a person. And it's just something that I think it's something that all trans and gender forming to like deal with, there are people who, the very rare people who are just so comfortable and so self-assured and so confident in their bodies and in their truth, and like hats off to them. But the majority of us, we have to deal with it every day. So
Really struggling.
and I'm one of those people, definitely. So yeah.
So how do you experience gender dysphoria? If we're gonna get into the nitty gritty anyway, like how
Where
is
do I
it like
start?
for you? Oh my god.
How do I experience it? One thing that the earlier speaker, Miss Amber, talked about was the voice, and especially as a singer, as a singer and as like a filmmaker, I use my voice all the time. And that's one big insecurity of mine. When yun nga, pagising mo, your voice isn't in the right place that you want it to be. And most of the time, I don't care. But when I have to face certain people, or when I have to show up to like an event, or when I have to coordinate with someone over the phone,
It's true.
it really does get to me when I do get misgendered, or when I have to tiptoe around and just like gear up to yung pinakamataas na kaya ko at the moment, ganon. Para lang hindi ako ma-disrespect, or para hindi ako ma-misgender. And I feel like it's an experience na a lot of trans women definitely face. Pero yun, that's one thing. Another experience is dead naming. That's like
Dead name.
for the listeners who don't know, dead naming is using the incorrect name for someone. I go by Steph, and some people like to use my full legal name. And in some contexts, my pasa, I can give them a pass. If it's a legal context, we're never gonna see each other again. You just have to. It's on a document. Parang that's forgivable. although still triggering. But yeah, sometimes family members, although you've been going by Steph for X years, they still slip and use the legal name. And you're just like, we've been through this before. So ayun, that's definitely something that does trigger my dysphoria. And just like so many things, so many things. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really hard. Actually, dead naming, I know that people don't, well, a lot of people don't mean to do it, but some people do still do it, and it's
They
so
still end up.
they still end up doing it. Yeah, and how do you deal with people when they dead name you?
Um
Sorry.
Ideally, no, you're fine. You're fine. Ideally, I should correct them and I should sit them down and calmly express na hindi po yun okay. Ito po yung pangalan ko ngayon. And this it's also I'm lucky that I've been using this nickname since I was 6. So kahit papaano, it shouldn't be a difficult adjustment. But ayun, I guess it's just a but normally yun nga when I do get caught off guard and it's a public setting, you're among so many family members, parang it's a personal thing with me na I have a difficult time speaking up. And it just like I am kind of non-confrontational kasi. So and especially like I don't want to come off abrasive, even though I know na it's just it's a simple thing. I'm just trying to assert myself. I get in my own head that kind of then that just like in that way hindi sila na correct, and in that way I unintentionally kind of allow it to happen. So that's something I want to work on. And I'm very fortunate that I do have very loving family members. Then I have really loving cousins. I am lucky to have a safe space among my cousins and my immediate family. Na I can kind of open these things up to them. And ayun, in that way, sila na yung nag-remind sa mga titos titas na kung pwede, wag na gamitin yon. And sa mga bata na ate na talaga. And yun, doon ako sinwerte na kahit papano, I do have people in my life who are willing to speak up for me when I'm afraid to. But syempre, they're not always gonna be there. And
Right.
yeah, so that's how I deal with dead naming in
That's
particular.
great.
That's
Yeah.
nice. It's good that you have that kind of support group, or like that kind
Yeah.
of, yeah, your family actually would be there
Yeah.
for you to cover up.
Sana all.
Sana
Yeah.
all
True,
Sana
though, yeah,
all.
for
true,
real. Sana
true.
all.
Exactly. Sana all talaga.
And oh, it's good that
Pray about
you
yourself.
have that. And uh yeah, we when it comes to but I just want to ask personally, when it comes to legal name, do you use sorry, how do we do this distinction? Do we call it dead name or legal name?
You can use
So
either. Well, my legal name is my dead name, so usually
okay,
usually they're the same. Yeah.
I
Mhm.
use it the
Uh,
same, but you're
or like all the time rather. They should be the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, that makes sense.
When it comes to legality wise, you're okay. It's are you okay with it, or or is it something that's sort of necessary to use?
Well, one, it's necessary to use unless you get your name changed, which is
Mhm.
another like arduous legal process that is not
Yeah.
cheap. So yes, one, it's a necessity for me and for many trans people. And two, it's also just for me personally, it's also just a matter of recognizing that and trying to not let have power over me, because I could spend the rest of my afternoon like miserable about seeing my name after like going to PhilHealth or going to
Right.
NBI. Pero at the end of the day, it's just a name on paper. And
Right. Right.
I try to look at it that way, and that
Mhm.
yes, I was born with that name, and respect to the people who named me, whatever. But I recognize that that's not how I go by, and I try to just separate the two, um, because at the end of the day, like it's just it's something I have to deal with, and I'm gonna keep dealing with it in my professional life, and in getting legal documents. And it's just like, although still triggering, I choose to deal with it. I actively choose to just not suck it up, but try to adjust my perspective, I guess.
Right.
That's a really
So,
good, like, that's a really positive outlook when it comes, or mindset when it comes to dealing with that. And yes, sorry, you were saying.
no, yeah. Adjusting your mindset. It sounds easy to do, but it really is hard, isn't it? Like the mental, like, I don't know,
The mental
the mental
gymnastics.
hoops, yeah,
Yes.
gymnastics that you have to go through just to make sure that this thing doesn't make me feel this way.
Yeah. Yes. The effort you have to put in to not be upset for the rest of the week. It's just like,
Yeah.
and I think
Mood.
that's one thing that that's one thing that is very unique to the trans experience, is that when you're triggered by dysphoria, which there are a million triggers for dysphoria, it's just a constant fight. It's a constant inner battle to, for example, if it's an external factor, it's like, okay, am I gonna let this? Am I gonna address it immediately? And you have to think, what is the outcome gonna be? Are they gonna respond well? Are they
Mm.
gonna respond horribly? Am I gonna feel even more miserable after dealing with it? It's just, there are so many things you have to anticipate and adjust, and you have to premeditate on steps A, B, C, and D to avoid the encounter or the trigger, or something that will trigger your gender dysphoria. So it's just like, it's so much more work than what a cis person would ever deal with.
That's
And
true.
Yes.
they don't necessarily know that. They don't necessarily understand that, oh, wow, that there's so much work that goes into it.
Privilege of just being, if we're gonna put it in words, like they can just be
Yeah.
and nobody's gonna do anything about it. Like,
Yeah.
just use your real name, go about your life, and yeah. So that's
And
really
not have
hard.
being trans be a factor in your job applications.
Reach.
Yeah, that's another thing.
Yeah.
No.
Okay. You, Miss Steph, you mentioned a bit about triggers, and I wanna touch a bit on that. Are there any activities, situations, or normal day to day things that trigger or worsen the dysphoria?
Um. Well, yeah, and one definite thing is when I'm dead named, and because usually it's not malicious. Usually it's just being naive or forgetful, or nakasanayan, kaya di na
Mhm.
iwasan that moment. So that's definitely one trigger. Another one would be, there are certain people with certain habits that in the household that when they're gaming, sinasabi nila yung bakla as an
Ah,
insult.
I feel that.
And it's just
Oh.
like, wow, psychological distress for free. Alam mo yun, parang, and it's just like, you're intelligent. Your vocabulary, I'm sure, is more extensive than that one word. You can
But you
use
had
so
to
many
use
other
that
words. Like,
one.
I
Mhm.
understand that it's trash talk. I understand that it's part of a culture, but it's so destructive. And what's another thing. It's just like, even when it's said in passing and it's not directed towards you, you know
Ah,
that that's a word that's used to like insult you
yeah,
and
to put
like,
you down.
yeah, put you down. And it's just like, that's not something they can necessarily consider. And that's a whole nother conversation of, is it okay if you don't do this? And like, and I yeah, and once again, it's just like, you have to anticipate abrasiveness,
Yeah.
or like, hindi naman kailangan yan. Ano, bakit ba? Inaano ka ba? So, alam mo yun, so that's another trigger, definitely. What else? Seeing myself in the mirror sometimes is a trigger. And I think
Oh,
it's
I
more of
feel
just like
that.
yeah, because genetics, because the blue in the upper lip area is really annoying at times. So you gotta have your concealer all the time. Uh, and then sometimes I do think about just like how my body look, whether or not, and it's always in relation to, not necessarily always, but more often than not, it is in relation to, am I cis passing? Am I cis passing enough? Am I
Mm.
subscribing to how people see women, cis women rather, or just women in general? But yeah, do I fit into this ideal enough? Which shouldn't be a concern. Like, because because at the end of the day, trans women are women, trans men are men, and non-binary,
Mhm.
non-conforming people are who they are, regardless. So, and
That's true.
that's how I try to live my life. But like you can't help. Yeah, most often, more often than not, you can't help when society just like bombards you with all of these standards, but especially when you're trying to when you're trying to be confident in your own skin. So I am.
That's true. Because there's just a lot of these norms, these expectations, society just dictating how you should be, how you should look, how you should behave, how you should sound, even.
Exactly,
Yeah.
It's
exactly.
really heteronormative.
Yeah, it's very
Absolutely.
heteronormative. Definitely. Like I felt what you said. Sometimes I pass by a mirror or like a really like reflective piece of glass somewhere, and then I just stop for a minute and be like, that's how I look like. This is me. That I don't know how I'm supposed to look like, but that doesn't feel right, you know? Especially when I'm forced to like dress more feminine whenever I'm with my family at home. It's like this isn't me. This isn't how I want to be. So I can only imagine how amplified that is when, you're a trans person and you're already doing all these things to be seen as who you want to be seen as. And still, there are things that trigger you like that.
And I think it's also, I think it could be even more I think it could even be more complicated, especially if you're gender fluid, if you're non-conforming, because what if the role that you have to play that day doesn't align with how you feel that day,
Oh
diba? So
no.
it's just like,
You just hit a nail right on the
what
head.
are we gonna do about this, diba? So ayun, I can only imagine, I can only imagine how difficult that is. So ayun.
Yeah, I get that. Sometimes I have to like inform the people around me. Well, as long as I'm not at home, I get to inform my friends that like, hey, I'm feeling pretty masculine today, so could you please refer to me this way, or could you excuse the fact that I want to lower my voice really deep today and not say anything about it, or yeah, and it's really hard.
And I
But
think that I
yeah,
sorry, you go.
no, no, go ahead.
And that you touched on something really important, because those kinds of safe spaces, those your barkada, your org, your best friend, having these safe spaces is so important, just to have a reprieve from like the constant inner battle that you're facing. Because I think, and I can't assume for other people, of course, but for me, it is like a constant. You're lucky if you get distracted and you're just like whatever, di mo siya naiisip, but
Mm-hmm.
for most of the time na you're just like quiet with your own thoughts, like that kind of comes to mind immediately. So,
Right.
and as much as I would love to channel my energy into other thoughts all the time, you gonna mention iiwasan. So having best friends to vent to, having barkada to vent to, or an org that is a safe space, is such a reprieve. And it's where you can literally let your hair down, or cut it all off,
Mm-hmm.
and you're safe, and you don't have to worry about dysphoria and triggers. And it's just like, because you know that these people understand.
Yeah, and they just let you be who you want to be.
Yeah, and we talked about safe spaces and uh how do you when you're not, let's say, in a sort of safe space, how do you deal when the dysphoria hits?
Right.
uh
Oh.
um, let me think about that. When I am in an unfamiliar space, or when I'm in just anywhere in public where there's too many people and they're too close, aka public transport, which is like a daily occur. Well, it used to be a daily occurrence. Pero yun, before the panorama, being in the MRT or being in a jeep, yun, naramdaman mo yung dysphoria definitely there, and you just like, I almost just like curl inward physically and psychologically, because I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna try to do everything in my power to be as cis as possible, and that's so toxic. That's so toxic. But like, you can't help it because you just want to try to avoid the trigger. You just want to try to avoid an instance where you could either experience like a glare, or a bad look, or someone potentially calling you out or something. You just want to avoid that experience as much as possible, because you're just trying to get from point A to point B. So ayun, that's my experience on it. Na I just be quiet, try to squish myself, and try to be as anonymous as possible, and like to try to draw just like as little attention to myself as possible. And I don't know if that's like I don't think that's a healthy thing. I don't think and trans people should just like be, as you guys said earlier, we have the right to just be. And as a trans person, like, my thought process is and as queer people, like, we can't really afford to do that. So ayun, yeah.
It's really hard when you just, you step out of your house or you step out of where you live, and the first thing people do at you is stare. The first thing people do is look at you like you're a spectacle, or like you're a display.
Like
And
a specimen.
yeah, because I know that I don't dress well. I don't want to say this. I don't dress like how I should, according to many
How
people.
should?
Quote, air quotes, like I should. And it gets me into some really difficult situations sometimes, like at school. Like my professors would be like, "You're not supposed to dress that way. Why is your hair so short? Why do you look like that?" And it triggers a lot of things that I'm already thinking, like, why do I look like this? Why do I dress like this? Am I not supposed to do this, or am I supposed to do something else? Yeah, it's just so difficult.
And it's just like, and it's just so disrespectful, because it's like, why is it any of your business?
Truly.
Why is it any of your
Indeed.
business how I look, how I sound, how I present myself? Like, you have your own body. Like,
Yeah, look at yours. Think about yours.
yeah, worry
Yeah,
about
worry about
yourself.
yourself.
Diba? So, ayun. Anong pakialamanan dito?
Tama. Honestly, though, I'd like to ask, like, how do you, like, yeah, sometimes it's at a high level, sometimes it's at a low level. How do you bring it from, like, a higher level of, like, dysphoria, and then you bring it down to a manageable one? Can you give us some tips on, like, how to do that, if you have any?
I think when it's really intense, because when it is at like a low level, that's when it's easier for me to deal with that. It's easier for me to manage myself, take a breath, distract myself, and then just like move on. That's like a pro tip, is to just like distract yourself with good energy, with good content, with with like your hobby or your favorite game, and just like just to like take yourself out of that place mentally.
Right.
But when that's really difficult, that's when I need to like talk to my friend, or talk to someone, because being queer, being trans is such a lonely experience. And even if and we're lucky, kasi kahit papaano we have our icons, we have people, we have queerness is much more accessible now in the media.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Although not necessarily diverse, not necessarily to the specificity now we may need or want, but more than it's more accessible now than ever before. But at the same time, you we're people we crave uh like we crave that other person who is actually there for you. So regardless of
Right.
if it's a jowa or a sibling or a parent or your best friend, um yun, I would say na kausapin niyo sila, talk to them, and even if they don't necessarily understand, if you know that that person is someone who is willing to listen and just be with you in that moment and sympathize with you, or and really like, and not discredit you. Syempre, don't choose someone na will trigger your dysphoria even more, because like, why are you keeping people like that in your life anyway? Pero yun,
Right, right.
yun, go to someone that you feel is a safe space for you, and air it all out. Kasi after that, I guarantee na kahit papaano gagaan ng onti yung dinadala mo, and then you proceed to your favorite game, or like into something that will distract you even more. Because more often than not, it's an external, or it's either an external factor or a genetic thing na you don't have like immediate control over. And it's not something you can it's not like a necessarily a quick fix. There's no quick fix to like whatever that trigger may have been. So it's either working towards bettering that or fixing that, or uh just running to someone. Ayun.
Right. Honestly, you mentioned something I've been really curious about. Like you mentioned Joa. Okay. So my oh wait, no, Zoe, don't laugh at me, okay? My question here is like, are there any things that, well, if you have a partner or not, or if you've had a partner, are there any things that they do that they're unaware of that trigger your dysphoria sometimes? Because I want to find out, because I'm not quite sure how to deal with it. I mean, even as a friend and not a Joa, but what do I do unconsciously that may be triggering someone's dysphoria?
I feel that with any kind of relationship, and especially if it's someone that you're intimate with, you have to have that dialogue with them. Kailangan mo sila kausapin and and make it like an open discussion lang. Na you're just trying to understand what are your triggers, or
Mm-hmm.
ask them if you're curious about their triggers, what are their triggers, what things are they sensitive about that they don't want touched, that they don't want seen, that they don't want talked about.
Mm-hmm.
What are there things from their past that you don't are there things in their past that they don't like being brought up? Are there, you just have to, it's not it's kind of like a general trying to get to know them so that you don't hurt their feelings, but it's also specific to their identity and their queer experience, their trans experience. Nah, you're just trying to be sensitive to their needs. And and I think if you ask, I think there's nothing wrong with asking. If there's no malice there, if it's clearly out of respect and love, they
Mm-hmm.
will answer. And I think they would appreciate that you're trying to create a safer space for them. Because that's the goal naman eh. That's always the goal if you're
Yeah.
an advocate, if you're an ally, or if your significant other is trans and or queer. There's nothing it should be okay to ask. And if they're not comfortable disclosing just yet, you can wait. Just say that, just extend that olive branch na if ever you want to talk about it, or if ever there's anything that makes you uncomfortable, I'm here for you. Or let me know and I'll adjust. Kasi ang laking bagay
Right.
na nun.
Yeah, that's such a good point. Everyone out there listening, just ask sincerely and in
Yeah.
a very kind and respectful manner. There's nothing wrong. You don't have to guess. I hate it when people guess. They're always like, "Sir?" Like they take a pause and they say, "Sir?" Or they're like, "Ma'am?" And it's like, you could just ask. It's not that hard. You could just be like, "Ano po itatawag ko sa inyo?" And then that's all there is to it, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah.
exactly. especially since not everyone is comfortable disclosing immediately what, like, you can't exactly have hi, my name is Steph and my pronouns are she her and identify as this. It's you can't you there are situations wherein you can't afford to have a dialogue with your server or your grab driver.
Mm, right.
And it's very much like a situation wherein you're like, do I do I need do I need to assert myself in the situation and have this dialogue right now, or does this not matter to me after the scrub ride? So
Right.
it's also just like a weighing of your own needs and expectations, and whether or not you're willing to put the energy into that, because that also takes a toll on you, you're already dealing with dysphoria. And if you have to like kind of teach every single person that you come in contact with, that's also such a big like investment of
Yeah.
energy. So
So tiring.
yes, absolutely. So that's definitely like just that's that.
Honestly, that's such a good point. Like, the thing where you said if you're only gonna meet them once, just let it happen, get them out of your head, move on with your day, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, and of course only if that works for you.
Right,
If
right,
you're
of
the type of
course.
person na is willing to have that conversation, and if you're an aggressive Leo, I don't know,
Leo.
Aggressive
um
Leo.
yeah,
Sorry, wait.
diba?
Right.
No, I mean, that's only, of course, if that works for you and if you can deal with that. If it's so triggering, um, just do your best to get out of that situation as soon as possible. Um, and return to a safer space or a more quiet space wherein you can be yourself, diba? Ayan.
Yeah, I had a question while I was listening, Kanina, because you said that you hear things that cis people say, like, for example, yung bakla, that was triggering for you, but is considered normal in this society as a trash talk thing,
Yeah,
even though it really
yeah.
shouldn't, because gay is not an insult. I just I just wanted to ask, as a cis person, is there things that parang cis people need to stop doing to prevent trans people from feeling triggered, or feeling something that might lead to hurting themselves or spiraling down or
I
something?
think one
Yeah.
main thing that um there's just so many things they should just stop existing. But
Oh.
uh trans is the new normal. No. I think that one main thing that, especially in regards to trans people, I think one thing that cis people need to understand is that it's never okay to ask about um it's never okay to ask about genitalia. Like it's
Mm,
never
Mm,
like
yes.
you don't like, if you're a random person, or if you're or no if, especially if you're in a professional situation, it's so rude to just ask about someone's genitals. It's just like, I didn't ask about your pussy, alam mo yun? Or like, I didn't ask about your dick. So why are you asking about what I have? It's so invasive and it's just inappropriate. And that's the basis. That's the it's just not ethical, and it's
right.
also
Yeah.
it's also very disrespectful, because you wouldn't ask that to a fellow cis person. And it's just like,
That's
you don't
true,
have to
you
treat other
wouldn't.
people as unicorns because because SRS is a thing in the trans world, because not every trans person undergoes SRS or any procedure for that matter. So it's just like, that's their business. If you're their friend and they're close enough to open that up to you, they will.
True.
But
Mm-hmm.
if you're not like that, but if you're not that to them, don't ask, or mind your own business. It's so simple.
Yeah.
It's so simple.
It's just really rude na parang first time mong mag-meet and then you just immediately ask, like, so what's in your pants or something. You wouldn't do that to like anyone. That's just so, it's invasive and kind of creepy actually. So
Yeah,
parang
it is creepy.
people need to stop doing that, because especially if they're not ready to
Exactly.
say it, and if they're not in a safe space to disclose that information, you shouldn't be forced to just say anything at all.
Exactly, especially if the tone is clearly because it's kasi intriga or kasi chika or chismis,
Mm.
Oo.
and it's so just like, huh? My body is not your gossip fodder. Alam mo yan? Huh?
Mm.
Another thing that another dysphoria trigger uh that cis people should stop doing, which also is like, well, actually not necessarily just cis people, because a lot of queer people also don't necessarily know that they do this, but just like backhanded compliments, like and I think this was brought up earlier in the previous episode, but it's also so disrespectful to be like, oh my god, kung di ka nagsalita, akalain kong babae ka.
Oh,
Or yes, I've had friends
So
who experienced
rude.
that.
That's
And also, grabe, akala ko talaga babae ka. And it's just like, you really think that's a compliment, sis? Like,
It's bad.
But you are a
you, like,
woman.
are you sure about what you just
Mhm.
said? Alam mo yun, parang, pwede naman mag-isip muna bago magsalita. Or pwede naman sabihin, ay, ang ganda mo. Alam mo yun, parang, there are so,
yes,
like, it's
that's
so
true.
easy to word it in a way that isn't insulting. And I think I do understand that they may not know that it's an insult. They may not know that the difference between uh strictly speaking bakla and trans woman, because that's also, I do understand that those two things are conflicted and are
Mm.
one in a Philippine context. That's a,
Mhm.
it's a whole linguistic matter. Pero the point is, regardless, if you feel na this comment has given them discomfort or made them uncomfortable, just like, don't do it again. Or if you hear that if you hear a trans person complaining about that kind a backhanded compliment,
Right.
respect that instead of being
Right.
defensive. Because usually it's just like, no, and a compliment naman yun eh, bakit nyo ba
Oh my
inaano?
god.
We should call it out then eh.
No, I didn't. Yeah, it's just like, you don't have to be defensive about it. Like, it's disrespectful, and that's what it is. So
And
ayun.
hindi ikaw yung na-offend. So, ba't parang ikaw yung na-offend? Diba?
I think
Precisely,
it's because they're
precisely.
defending
Exactly.
behavior that they've exhibited before. That's why. And also, I have this like
Yeah.
working theory in my mind, right? That the reason why people give backhanded compliments to queer people is because they're insecure about something. Like in their minds, it's like they don't really treat you as an
Yeah.
actual woman or an actual man, so they have to like put you down some way.
They have to point it.
Mhm.
Yeah, they have to
Yeah,
point out
yeah.
how you're
Because they
different from
can't
them. Yeah.
imagine that someone could be more beautiful than them.
Basically, someone hotter than
And
them.
yeah, they can't
Yeah.
find someone hotter than them. So they're
Period.
just insecure.
Period.
Exactly. So I
Period.
think for me, I like people listening out there, maybe just if it if there are people you encounter who are like that, just think of them as insecure people who can't handle the fact that you're more beautiful than them. you know, make it
Yeah.
yeah.
Or get better
Actually,
friends. I mean,
honestly, don't even
Yeah.
stick with people like that. Why would you, right?
We should consider it a red flag. Yeah, if
Yeah.
people do that.
Mm.
yeah. Pero syempre, that isn't to say that we can't educate
Mm.
people who do make mistakes and people who do say those kinds of things. Because usually, especially if it's someone that you know does it without malice and does it earnestly and just really thinking sincerely that it was a compliment, that you should be able to easily have a conversation where, okay, I don't like it when you say that, and if you really respect me, please don't do that again. And I think it's not necessarily an easy conversation to have, but if you think that it is possible with that person who you or especially if that person is someone na hindi mo ma-avoid, it's if you can have an open conversation with them, just try to communicate with them na it's not okay. And if they're really your friend, they will adjust for you, diba? So,
Tama
ayun.
yan.
Yeah.
Dapat hindi lang tayo yung nag-a-adjust. Sila din.
Yes.
Balance lang.
Yeah.
Yes, diba?
That's one of the pet peeves I have with cis people as well, because you see like trans people talk about their struggles and their stories every day, and lagi na lang sila yung nagsasalita. It's like we keep listening, and I don't see any cis people like joining in the conversation, like defending trans people from cis people who are uh, uneducated. But like, why can't we be the ones to educate them? Because if we always put trans people in such a spot na they can be discriminated and parang uh, talked against, when we can rally behind them, and we can join the conversation, and just um, point out and tell people that, hey, what you're doing is triggering. And yeah, I feel like it needs to be talked more, and it needs to be normalized that, hey, not trans people aren't the only ones who be doing the work. We need to help them, and we need their we need to amplify
Yeah.
their message to other people. So yeah, it's just one of my pet peeves that I wish had changed with that.
I
Yeah.
definitely agree with that point because um trans like yeah, well obviously queer people in general are a minority, but trans people are like
Yeah,
a sub minority within that larger minority. So and get we understand that we're unicorns and we're beautiful, charat. Pero 'di ba, we can't handle the burden of solely advocating for ourselves. And it's glad we're and I am happy about trans issues being covered more in the media and us having more of a presence online
true.
with like influencers, but like also at the same time, it's so often that cis people do speak for us when it's not necessary. And I agree with you that cis people should speak, should amplify our
It can be
voices, and
tiring.
should lift us up as well, instead of speaking for us or against us. And that's so it's so
Right.
important to have allies. It's so important to have allies because even within the
True.
LGBTQ community, um, there are some transphobic people. So
Yeah.
and it's we have so much, we have such a long way to go. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
yeah, transphobia is shit. Eme.
Yeah. Saka mahirap yung kung laging ikaw na lang yung nagbubuhat. Parang,
Yeah. May iba namang groupmates sa project. Tumulong sila.
Exactly.
ay,
Nakakaloka. 'Di ba?
Honestly, we talked so much about dysphoria. Zoe, do you have any other questions?
actually, I'm processing things.
Go
Yeah,
ahead, go
I mean,
ahead.
and I think, well, I just want to say yes. I think for you, this is also a very personal topic. So, go if you have any more things to
I
say.
mean,
Um,
I do experience dysphoria. Yeah.
may naisip ako on whether gender dysphoria will ever go away.
Oh,
Oh,
Yeah, and the concept of gender euphoria, which I recently picked up from a friend. Um, I think it's I can't say for sure that dysphoria will ever go away, but as a queer person, as a trans person, you can take steps to affirm yourself and to uplift yourself and make yourself more comfortable with who you are and more comfortable in your skin. And that's where things like uh social transitioning come in, and your as Amber mentioned in the previous episode, internal transitioning, and just like learning to manage your own feelings, learning to manage your own uh self image, and really figuring out how you feel about yourself and what you would like to change, how you would like to develop, not only physically but also psychologically, emotionally, and of course the more external things, such as, or the more like physical procedures such as SRS, or top surgery, or like pagpapaganda via Botox or whatever, um or dyeing your hair, cutting your hair short. Like, there are things you can do to really uplift yourself, and when you feel that you're in a place that you are, when you're somewhere that you can do that, or when you're when you're at a place in your life where you can do that safely without people going against you, take those steps and remember to take care of yourself and remember that you're not alone. Na ang dami ding pinagdadaanan yon. And if you can't, and remember that it's not something na you overcome overnight. It's a daily battle, and it doesn't have to be a one and done. There are people na ang dami ng pinagawa or ang tagal na in their transition, no matter what aspect of transitioning it is, na still feel insecure, still feel not still feel that they're not enough, and that's so difficult, but you have to recognize na wherever you are right now is a step towards becoming better, and you just have to take those steps as well to feel better about yourself. And if you can't get there right now, yun, find your safe space, find your distraction, find things that make you happy, and do those things in addition to the things that affirm your identity. So and just understand that it's a process. It's a process that you don't need to rush, because who you are and whatever you are right now is so valid and is so important. So, diba?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so
And you
true.
mentioned gender euphoria. Earlier we've discussed gender dysphoria, and now I want to ask, how does gender euphoria looks like for you? Or how do you experience it?
Ooh, for me, I love this. I experience gender euphoria whenever I put my makeup on, whenever I put on a cute outfit, whenever someone I'm flirting with calls me cute. Alam mo yun, those are things.
Yes.
Also, gender euphoria whenever, this is very specific, and I think it's because um, there are a lot of layers to this. And this is a very specific experience. But I went on exchange to Japan kasi in 2019. So for 4 months, I was alone, and I was a baby trans girl, and I was alone in Japan. And some people are lucky that they're able to go on exchange with people that they know, and have that experience with their friends. And I didn't know anyone there. So I had to like build a new social support system. And as a trans person, I was really afraid of that going in, because I didn't know I didn't know if I would be able to assert myself properly, or if people would clock me immediately and just not be friends with me. So there was so much anxiety going into it. And luckily, I was able to find a really good set of friends there, and they really had my back. And even may na-meet din akong Pinay doon, and now she's a good friend of mine. May na-meet din akong Pinay doon na is from UP as well, Diliman. And she really like, and she's just like, and she's like very Catholic. She's very Catholic. She's very open about her faith, but she was so loving and so open to learning. And she didn't know anything about the trans experience. And I was just like, I was like opening up to her, and she was very receptive of it. She was very so that definitely gave me gender euphoria. And then another instance is I went to Tokyo kasi yung school ko ay hindi sa Tokyo at the time. So I would have to travel 2 hours to get to Tokyo, which is a whole nother thing. Pero this one experience, we were at the karaoke, and we were talking about where we were before that, which was this like bar place na you have to pay a certain amount to get in for like a kasi parang all you can drink siya. And when I entered that bar, I didn't pay because wala yung person, wala yung parang registration cashier person sa harap. And I was trying to find them, pero wala sila doon. I was there for like 15 seconds. Tapos pumasok na lang ako kasi hinahanap ko yung friends ko. Because it was like 9:30 p.m. I was going to the bars. Parang, where are my friends? And then they were like, oh, my entrance fee, sis. I was like, oh, I didn't pay. But I was still getting drinks. So I was like, okay, whatever. And hindi ako sinisita. So I was like, all right. And then our other friends were telling one of the guys, because I only had like 2 friends there, 3 friends, and then the rest were like foreigners na exchange students na friends naman nila. And then they were telling that guy na you could have just gotten in without an ID or something kasi parang nagbayad pa raw siya para makapasok. Si Steph, 'di ba nga si Steph nakapasok nga? And then he was like, but she's on a mojito. And that's like, but and then he what he said was, but she's a girl. So like
yeah.
that's why she got in for free. And I was like,
Yes.
when a cute cis guy is just like, she's a girl. It really
Nice.
it really hits me here. So it really hit me in my heart. So yeah, and that was a really cute moment. I'll never forget that because that was someone I met that night, na friend lang na parang friend of a friend lang. And then I was just like, the affirmation is real tonight. Ayan. So that's an instance of gender euphoria for me.
Oh, that's amazing. So I guess would it be safe to say that gender euphoria is at its that it's what do you call it term? It's gender affirming.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Mhm.
It can be that kind of instance where someone says something about you, and it can also be just small things that you do for yourself that make you feel more comfortable in your skin and feel and make you really feel that alignment with your gender, and that confidence. Another example is my friend, and I learned this from my friend. I say that because she taught me this. I saw her Instagram stories, and I think she had just gotten a haircut or she was trying out a new makeup look. And she was just like, oh, this is peak gender euphoria. And I was just like, oh my God, that is so beautiful.
Mhm.
And it's so beautiful to see just the small things that you can do for yourself that really just like make you feel good about yourself. And it could be as simple as self-care things or yun nga, what other people say or actions that other people do for you, like holding the door for you. Kung like T-girl ka, tapos someone holds the door for you, I'm just like, thank you, sir. Mga ganong bagay. Or just like, guys, ano ba? Ganon.
That's amazing, and I hope that gets more normalized in the future. Or at
Right,
least we build
right.
on that. Yeah,
And
it's
for the
really small things,
yeah.
no?
And for the
Yeah.
people listening
Because
out
in the
there.
same way, sorry, you were saying?
No, go ahead.
In the same way, the smallest things kasi can really, the smallest comment or misstep from a friend can really just like make the next 3 hours of your life so sad. So ayun, the small things really do matter.
Yes, and as I was saying, for the listeners out there, you know now that you can achieve something other than dysphoria, and that's euphoria, where you feel happy being yourself by doing things for yourself, and that's such a good thing to know.
Yeah, it's such a positive way of looking at. It's such a positive aspect of the trans experience.
Truly. And for allies and non-trans who want to better support their trans friends and families, yeah, just do the simple things. Compliment them, like properly compliment them. Do the small things. Call their name and the other stuff. So yeah. And go hug a trans friend and family today and tell them how beautiful, how handsome, and how great they are.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, and just like it's always about respect. It's always about respect and love and just caring for that person. Kasi kung mahal mo yung taong yon, gagawin mo yun for them. And it takes no energy. It takes 0.01% energy to give that person that respect. Um,
Right.
because it's always a choice. It's always a choice to like not do that, diba? And it's also a choice to actively try to be better, diba? for our trans
Yes.
brothers, sisters, and non-conforming siblings and friends, diba? So ayun.
I'd like to thank you so much for being here. Do you want to send a message out there for all the people listening? For our trans babies and whoever else.
Hmm. Siguro I want to say something to the people na don't feel that they found that safe space yet. Um, I think uh, look, I think these kinds of programs are really helpful in that respect because uh, it's so important to have these avenues to really share these experiences and to really hear that other trans people are going through what you're going through, regardless of whether you're trans or not. If you're not feeling right that day and and you don't feel uh comfortable in your gender, or if you feel um not enough, it's so I'm really glad that there are platforms like this to really hopefully help people feel that they're not alone, and that there are always people who go through the same things, and that uh eventually you will find your safe space. And tinan mo yung Twitter, diba? I'm kidding. Just if you haven't found that safe space just yet, know that you will eventually, and know that you can always turn to all the gender affirming, positive queer content online, and know that your favorite Korean idol loves you, whether or not they know you personally. And ayun, if there's anyone out there that feels like uh they need guidance or whatever, or like someone to talk to about gender or whatever, they can like approach my social media if they feel like it. There's an ate here for you if ever. And yeah, just take care of yourself, and no matter what people have to say about you, um respect yourself and love yourself. Yeah.
Thank you so much. That's such a great
Thank you so
message.
much as
Yeah.
well.
We'll be back with our next guest speakers after this short break. Hi, hello everyone. We're back with another episode. So today's I'm with my co-host Zoe
Hello.
and Jelly.
Hi.
Tapos, we also have our guest speakers for today. Zoe, can you introduce?
So for today's episode, we have two special guests coming from PFTM. Mr. Reyel and Mr. Rocky. May you please introduce yourselves for our listeners.
Sige, I'll go first. So, sa mga bago pang makikinig, my name is Reyel Inocencio. I'm currently the Deputy Executive Director for Programs of Pioneer FTM, and I identify as trans masculine non-binary. And my pronouns are he, him. So, salamat sa pakikinig. Magandang hapon, magandang umaga, magandang gabi sa inyong lahat.
Ay, yun. Thank you. So, sobrang kompleto ricados yung yung bati mo. Sige.
Pahayag. Siyempre, di
Oo,
mo alam kung anong oras makikinig yung mga sambayan ng Pilipino.
tama naman. Very on point. So, ayun, ako po si Rocky Rinabor. I'm also with PFTM bilang Deputy Executive Director for Organizational Development. So kasama ko si Reyel sa PFTM. Magandang araw sa lahat at sana mag-enjoy kayo sa pakikinig.
And thank you very much for introducing yourselves to us. So for today's episode, medyo mabigat, no? It's about gender dysphoria. And we've already had a trans woman's perspective on what gender dysphoria is and how it feels like to go through that. But it's very different for trans men because you have different triggers, and even trans mask non-binaries. So, first things first, anong nga po ba ang gender dysphoria para sa inyo?
Sige, ako muna na mauna. Bilang ako yung unang nag-introduce. So, gender dysphoria is technically is the feeling of sadness about your gender. So, na-discuss to sa seminar workshop namin earlier na gender dysphoria is being dissatisfied or frustrated with the gender that you're with. It does not specify, actually, further specify na it could be bottom or top dysphoria or societal or mental dysphoria also. So, ang sinasabi lang doon ay malungkot ka kung ano ang kasarian mo. So, nararanasan dito na parang hindi nagtugma o ano yung katawan na ibinigay sa'yo o yung katauhan o pag-iisip mo. Kumbaga, may tunggalian. Hindi sila nagkakabate. So, ang gender dysphoria, isa siya sa mga factors for mental health issues ng transgender man at transgender masculine people. Kaya understandable din na yung ibang mga magte-take or nagte-take ng testosterone is actually hormones yun. It could alter your emotions din. So, kaya hinihingi yung permission ng doktor, ng psychiatrist, psychologist, so that you could fully understand the gender dysphoria and how could you reach the what we call gender euphoria. Yun na naman yung opposite nun. So, when you're fully satisfied and confident with what you are, your body, your mind, and your soul, so that's happiness.
Right. That's such a that's such a great way of putting it. And the fact that you really went into detail about like the clinicality of gender dysphoria, which I think a lot of people don't realize that it's an actual thing that affects your mental health. Like minsan they just brush it off na parang nag-iinarte ka lang, you know. So to have you say that and to validate that it is something that affects one's mental health deeply. And sabi mo nga, it contributes to trans people's mental health issues as well. So thank you for that. And how about you, Sir Rocky? Like, what's your take on gender dysphoria?
Yun. It's good that Rhea was able to share, no? Ano ba yung ibig sabihin talaga ng gender dysphoria as far as science is concerned, no? Ako, I would like to share based on my experience, no, or how I resonate with the issue. Basically, for me, dysphoria means that I am uncomfortable with how my body looks like when I see myself in the mirror. Although, very ano nga kasi hindi naman siya consistent na ganon. I mean, there are times that when I look at myself, no, in the mirror, I feel good naman. But there are those times na hindi. Mas madalas yung hindi. Pero hindi naman yung nangyayari na nawala lang. There are always triggers, no, as far as my experiences are concerned. Sometimes it can be as heavy as I mean yung discomfort, no, that I feel sometimes. It can be as heavy as I cannot go out of our home because of fear of possible discrimination, bullying, or invalidation outside of our house. Well, nag-stem din yon from my experience, no, that when I was a kid, I experienced bullying sa school, minsan sa mga kalaro ko mismo, no, nung bata ako pag naglalaro sa labas. So, actually, etong mga to, hindi ko naman siya na-realize agad, no, na parang, ito palang gender dysphoria ay nanggagaling, yun talaga yung root causes. But the more I learn about my gender identity, the more I learn about how I would like to express myself, the more I realize ano yung triggers at saka saan sila nanggagaling. But yun, basically, nangyayari siya because of an external perception din. So, diyan nanggagaling or diyan yan yung ibig sabihin, I mean, diyan siya nanggagaling sa different forms of discrimination that trans people generally experience.
Wow, yeah, you said something very interesting actually, like how your past experiences became something that triggered you on in the future about your gender dysphoria. And like knowing that, and like when you start to express yourself, that's when you start to realize what actually triggers you more.
Yeah.
I think that's important to talk about because like we just generally feel uncomfortable, right? But sometimes we don't necessarily know what exactly it was that made us uncomfortable, so we
Or
don't
you're
know
not
how to deal with
sure
it.
if it's dysphoria.
Yeah,
Right.
or if you're just feeling anxious that day or
Yeah.
something. Yeah.
So it makes me wonder, how did you find out that what you were experiencing was dysphoria? How was it different from like other other feelings of insecurity and uncomfortability?
Hmm. Yun. I think the very first time that I felt that way was, well, nung bata ako, lagi akong, lagi akong nakasuot ng cap. But I have always wondered why. Like parang, why do I like this thing? No, parang, well, maliban sa obvious reason na kasi parang, uh, I mean, most boys, di ba, or most men use cap, no? So parang na-associate natin siya sa masculinity, for example. But apart from that, no, parang dati nag-reflect din ako, parang why do I always use cap, no, nung bata ako. Ngayon hindi naman na masyado, but when I was a kid, as in daily, hindi siya, minsan kahit tulog ako, suot ko pa din siya. So parang tinatanggal na lang ng anyone, no, from my family members, lalo na yung lola ko nung buhay pa siya. But anyway, so I think well, no, no, when I reflected, no, I realized kasi noong bata ako, um wala namang konsepto sa amin, sa bahay namin. We don't talk about gender
Mm.
strictly, no? Yung gender binary, we don't talk about it strictly at home. Also, we have sa language namin, no, as far as my community is concerned, marami kaming lingwahe na actually gender neutral, or
Ooh.
kumbaga pa ay gender fair, no, as
Mm.
far as language is concerned. So sa bahay namin, hindi issue yung parang lalaki ka dapat ganito, babae ka dapat ganito. In fact, yung mga damit namin sa bahay, dati pag binilhan kami, pare-pares kami ng damit ng mga kapatid ko regardless kung ano yung sex assigned at birth namin. Magkakaiba lang ng
Oh,
kulay.
that's nice.
So parang ganon. So we were not really brought up na parang very strict, no, in terms of soji. Anyway, so yung major experience ko when I was a kid ay so I entered a bathroom. I transferred school. Yung previous school ko ay yung bathroom namin ay sa loob ng classroom. So we only had one bathroom na accessible siya sa lahat ng
Right.
pupils. Like salitan lang kayo. So kumbaga gender neutral, 'di ba? Or all
True.
gender, or
Yeah.
in fact walang label at all, no. It
It's
just
just
says it's a
bathroom.
comfort room, 'di ba? So yung previous school ko ganon. So when I transferred to this specific school, they had that cubicles, so
Oh
binary na
no.
siya. Binary na siya.
I
So
see.
male, female, or boys, girls, that's how they labeled it. So foreign siya for me kasi that was the first time I encountered such kind of comfort rooms. Kasi sa bahay din naman natin, di naman ganon, 'di ba?
True.
Right.
Um so ayun, sa school yung lahat ng based on my experience din since I was a kid, most of my friends were boys. So yung first day ko dun sa school, tapos magbabanyo. So I went with my friends, no, who are boys. So pagpasok doon sa tas pa ako bago pa ako kasi transfer pa ako. So yung the kids, no, who were there sa bathroom said, ay hindi ka dapat dito. Dapat doon ka sa kabila kasi you are a girl.
Mm.
So parang ako, syempre hindi ko naman naintindihan yun. We don't discuss biology at home, parang ganon. Tapos ano din ako noon, I was just grade 3
Mhm.
or 4 if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, so that was that, no. But because I refused to go out because my friends were there, someone hit me, no. So parang
Oh my
sinapa
God.
ako. Oh, and then parang
God.
to the extent na like as in nilabas nila ako doon sa ano, doon sa banyo. Parang kinaladkad ganon.
Grabe yun ah.
Grabe.
Oo. So,
What?
Napabukas ako ng mic kasi parang hindi naman pwede yun sa
Oo
bata.
nga.
yeah.
Di ba kung babalikan mo, child abuse
Yeah.
yun, pwede ka
True.
Yeah,
maghapla.
True.
exactly. What's different was doon sa in the community where I come from, no, we are not I mean most of the people there are not law abiding citizens or whatnots. No, we don't care about rules.
I see.
Very cultural yung approach namin sa mga bagay-bagay. And that's how usually are, no, sa mga for example mga indigenous communities, no. Anyway, so syempre nung time na yun, hindi ko naman alam na that was a form of bullying or discrimination. I don't know anything about that. But noong when I can remember na I had a conversation with my grandmother, no, na sinabi ko na parang ano ba ibig sabihin ng ano ba ibig sabihin ng girl? So parang doon, that was the first conversation we had at home, that we had to talk about male and female.
I see.
But I was sure na yung concerns ko during that time or yung issues that I had during that time ay hindi alam nung lola ko paano ako sasagutin, no. Anyway, so parang nag-escalate like I did not really understand, no, yung discussion about it, but habang nagkaka-age ako, ganun yung ganun yung parang na-implant sa utak ko, no? And in my mind, okay, so there has to be a girl and there has to be a boy. So you have to know your place, parang ganon.
Yeah.
But because since bata ako, I really felt that I am masculine, no? Since I was a kid, how I expressed myself was very masculine. Yun yung naging ano ko. I always wear cap. Kasi na feel ko na pag gumagamit ka ng cap, people see you as a boy. So alam mo yun, parang ako, that was my scapegoat, some sort of like that, na
Yeah,
parang
way of
I have to wear
affirming.
this.
Yeah,
Oo, yeah. That was my way of affirming myself. Hanggang sa ayun, so parang ngayon nga na ngayon na nade-discuss yung issues on bathrooms. And parang reflecting, ngayon ko lang na-realize, actually matagal na pala yan na issue. Okay. Kasi ako since I was a kid, na-experience ko na siya. So yun, those are some of the triggers, no. So parang yung bullying experience ko ay it stemmed from that to the point na sobrang and then I also had a group of friends who who identify as lesbians, and then kasi before dahil hindi ko naman alam agad na 'di ba
Right.
trans man pala ako, 'di ba? So parang I had friends who are lesbians, and then parang there was a time na dahil nga parang I refused to be labeled as a lesbian. We had a very I would say violent, no, confrontation. And then marami sila. So parang dumating din ako doon sa point na I was even scared of befriending lesbians kasi parang pakiramdam ko tuloy parang saan ba ako magiging safe, no, na lugar where
Nagkurutan ba kayo? Nagamit nail
hindi,
cutter?
sobrang violent siya in a way. Alam niyo yung, I'm not sure kung familiar ka sa mga fraternities or sororities, but they do that. Yung
Oh my
parang initiation.
God.
I was hindi naman, but I was blindfolded and then I was slapped many times, like isa-isa nila ako. So parang, yeah, but just because I express myself differently than them. So parang that was the basis. And then, so nagpatong-patong na siya. And then hanggang sa, okay, I was able to identify the only reason people hurt me, either physically, emotionally, or psychologically, is because of how I identify or how I
Right.
express myself. So doon ko na-realize na, okay, so and then from there, nagkaroon na ako ng gender dysphoria. I was able to identify that what I feel pala, natatakot akong lumabas, natatakot akong makipag-friends ng kung sino-sino man because of that.
Right.
Yeah. So sorry, sobrang haba.
No, it's okay. But
It's
yeah,
okay.
those are some very
Oo
heavy.
nga, maalaala mo
Oh,
kaya.
yeah. Pero yeah.
Abangan natin sa susunod na Sabado.
Ah,
Si Kuya Rocky. Sagot. Dito lamang. Alaala
you
mo
should
kaya.
produce it.
Sige, yung mga... Oy, gusto ko nga yung anthology ng mga LGBTQI stories.
Grabe, nakakayak naman
No
ata
joke.
yun.
Ang ganda nun. Yung parang weekly anthology.
Ay, actually, pwede.
It'll be nice.
Produce that.
But yeah, wow.
Pag may pera tayo.
Oh, meron lang eh. Wala nga. Yun lang yung problema. But yeah, grabe. Thank you for like being able to come out and say that. Kasi it's
Ang
hard.
bigat. Ang
Ang
bigat nun.
bigat. Ang bigat
Bigat
talaga.
niya. Ayoko na nga sundan.
Kahit
Parang itapusin na natin sa ganito.
Wag naman. I mean, yeah, that was,
Pwede ba tayo mag-joke para nabibigat na?
Joke lang. Pero ano kasi, importante siya mapag-usapan kasi hindi,
Oo.
you know, you wouldn't expect
Para
that.
maramdaman na.
Like, you wouldn't expect, like, that to happen to you, especially from people
Mm-mm.
from our community, the LGBT community.
Yeah, yun din.
Like,
Surprise ako.
the fact that
at
it
saka
got
yung
violent.
at saka our experiences are the only, I think, in my opinion, these are the only things na these are the only ways, parang through our stories, people would understand how
Right.
we feel, what we go through. Kasi they don't understand naman what gender dysphoria is Kasi
Yeah.
they don't go
Yeah.
through
Because
it.
they don't feel it.
Yeah, exactly. Diba? Most people don't
Yeah.
go through it. So,
Mm-mm.
Kasi nga, ang tingin ng tao, ang tingin ng society, default na sila. So parang they're comfortable in their own pretty bubbles and privileges na parang hindi nila kailangan pagdaanan to for like, personal development. Ang girl, hindi. Yung trauma ko, hindi ko personal development.
yeah.
Kumbaga sabihin, tumatag kayo trans people. Dahil
No.
no, hindi dapat pagdaanan ng trans people yan, lalo trans kids. Parang, kailangan nyo naman dumaan dito, kailangan nyo mahirapan. No.
exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Because they always say like, "Oh, we want to make a better future for the next generation and stuff like that." Like,
Para
yeah,
tayong
exactly.
fraternity dito. Parang, sige, susunod mahihirapan din dapat kayo kasi nahirapan kami.
Right. It shouldn't be that way. Dapat
Yeah.
we all have like the equal opportunity to live a life that's free of hardship and trauma. I'm not happy. I have trauma.
I mean, we probably all do.
Who is? But yeah.
Mas-schedule ba tayo? Sabay-sabay ba tayo magpa-therapy?
Group therapy, char.
FGD.
Focus group discussion. Pero yun,
Group
yeah.
sharing,
Oo.
ganun.
Yeah,
So, like, Kuya Reyel, like, na-mention ni Sir Rocky yung some of the triggers na he had as someone who grew up as a trans man. Pero as a trans mas non-binary, of course, iba yung mga nagti-trigger sa'yo.
Oo.
Like, if it's okay with you.
Actually,
Could you share some?
Actually, in my honest opinion, nagka-dysphoria ako when I actually first presented as trans man. Kasi you have to follow certain standards like have a binder, have a flat chest, go on tea, work out. Yung parang, wait, parang, is it really necessary na parang sinabi ko trans naman ako? Parang, from then on, nagka-dysphoria ako. Different from Rocky. Kasi nung bata ako, parang feeling ko alam ko na ako, hindi ko lang alam kung paano siya i-define.
Right.
So from the get-go, alam ko siya, iba-iba lang yung label. Kasi hindi ko siya alam, hindi ako aware. Tapos nung pumasok ako sa PFTM, parang lahat sila nag-PT, lahat ang lalaki ng katawan. Parang, wait, do I really need that? Do I really want that? Kasi parang doon ako nagtaka na parang bakit kailangan ko gawin. So nagtanong ako, parang lalo kung ino yung katawan ko na parang mali ba to? And saka ko inassess bakit ako natitrigger sa ganito. Kasi yung kaisipan na dapat ang trans man ay andoon sa patriarchal na ideal na dapat macho, dapat babaero, dapat malaki ang katawan. Hindi dapat ang boses lamya-lamya. Hindi dapat malaki ang dede. Kasi nga, lalaki ka eh. Oh, laki boses mo. Ngayon, hindi. Parang naintindihan ko na, wait, I have to embrace my femininity. I have to embrace my masculinity because this is who I am. Yun yung pagkatao ko. At wala namang makakabawi dun eh. Kumbaga, kung pupulisin nila ako, edi mo, diba?
Thank you for bleeping yourself.
Yun, di ba? Parang,
right.
ganun lang yun. Walang pasagan ng trip.
Tama.
Yeah, pero actually sobrang on point 'yon yung sinabi ni Reyel. We have a lot of trans masc siblings who are going through parang unnecessary anxiety, no? Kasi parang pero yun doon siya nanggagaling. Unfortunately, no, sa trans men community, sobrang taas ng level ng toxic masculinity. And this is something that we should talk about as a community, no? I mean, we should address this. That actually na-surprise nga ako because parang dati kasi iniisip ko, if there are group of people, no, who can understand na dapat hindi tayo toxic bilang tao, bilang masculine people, ay dapat yung community ng trans men, 'di ba? Because we have gone through, 'di ba? Right, 'di ba? We have been discriminated. A lot of our rights have been violated because of patriarchal ideologies, 'di ba? So yun, but surprisingly, parang it seems like there are a lot of trans men who actually try hard to climb that kind of standard, sabi nga ni Reyel, no, na
pero no, na-share ko sa iyo to, Besh, na parang bakit kaya nagsusubscribe yung iba nating members sa toxic masculinity. Parang nakwento, sa'yo ko ba nakwento, Kartetsu? Parang kasi hindi naman nila kasalanan eh.
Of course.
Parang yung patriarchal na ideals na when I subscribe to this, I am a fuller man. I am more man than any of you. Kumbaga, systemic yung problema, societal, na kaya din sila nagsusubscribe doon to make them feel more of a man, which is hindi dapat yung ganun yung konsepto. Diba?
Yeah, basically they have internalized, no, yung systemic forms of discriminations, marginalization, na they themselves parang they do it, you know. Yun.
Yeah, I think growing up as female, as your sex assigned at birth, tapos like transitioning later on, I think like ma-ingrain talaga sa utak mo na parang mas mataas ang lalaki. Dapat mas masculine ka kasi yun yung mas naaayon dito sa lipunan. And like, from a young age, you just build that up na sa isip mo dapat ganito ang isang lalaki. Ito yung mas tanggap ng mga tao.
So dapat ganun din ako.
Yeah.
Ako, in all honesty, nung bata ako, hindi naman eh. Parang, I just like masculine toys, damit. Pero growing up, lalo nung college, I have a lot of gay friends. Nakuha ko talaga yung gay lingo and the feminine side. Lalo, I have friends na cis women lahat, halos lahat. So, nakuha ko yun, chikahan, alam mo yun. Kuha ko siya. Kaya nung pumasok ko sa PFTM, I was wondering if that's the right way. I mean, if that's the right label for me. Kasi I was really dysphoric about it. Parang may mali. Parang wait lang. Parang mas sumama pa. I talked to my partner about it. Sabi ko, parang tama ba itong decision ko? Magtitiyak ko, nagpabind ako. So ngayon, I'm really proud na may ginawa na naman akong step in alleviating my gender dysphoria. nakakalabas na ako ng walang bra,
Wow.
minder, tape, laban lang. Nung 3 days akong nag-theoretical driving, kaya kayo na din eh. Yung instructor ko kasi akala niya talaga cis-man ako.
Ah.
So ilalagay na dun sa student license ko male. Hawak ko yung NSO ko. Dahan-dahan ko binigay, sir, female po. Gumano siya. Tumahimik na siya, pero siya yung na-awkward na parang,
Ooh.
yeah. Oo. Pero nakaka-happy
Mm.
din na parang perceived ka as
Yeah.
male. Kasi pinento ko din yun sa partner ko. Parang, oh my God, this is a new feeling being perceived as male. Sabi ko ba, parang nakakatuwa ba yung maging male? Kasi being trans mas and bi, parang yun nga eh. Ngayon nga, mas natatanggap ko yung femininity ko. Like, ang bawa, pag lalabas ako, hello ma'am, anong gusto niyo? Parang, hi! Mas comfortable ako magsalita ng high pitch kasi, halimbawa, pag perceived na ako as man, iniiba ko yung boses ko.
Ah.
Kasi parang mas nagiging dysphoric ako na parang, okay, i-adjust ko yung expectations mo dun sa pina-perceive mo na, sige, gagawa tayo ng ideals for you. Parang nag-a-adjust ako.
Yeah.
Ganon.
Yeah, I think somehow we all feel that way when we're talking to like cishet people and like they expect you to be a certain way and then you just have to act that way para hindi
Para walang
na
issue.
awkward. Oo, walang issue. Ganon. Pero that's interesting. Wait, especially about the part where you took steps on like alleviating your gender dysphoria. Like, I mean, we always talk about like how it feels or what it's like to go through and the triggers, but we don't really have much discussion about how one can alleviate
And get to that
feeling.
euphoria. The
Yeah,
gender
and get to
euphoria.
euphoria. So yeah, my question is, I guess, like, I know what are some other ways that you guys try to alleviate your dysphoria?
Go, Rocky, mauna ka.
Kasi nag-share ka na kanina. Actually, sobrang inspiring, no, how Reyel did that, no, because a lot of I mean trans men uh, ay hindi ganon ka taas yung courage, 'di ba? To even try. And you can actually observe that. Um, ako ang ano ko is I just, of course, yun nga yung sinasabi natin, you always have to affirm yourself, no? So for example, ako, if whenever I face my mirror, no, and I feel dysphoric, mas nilalabanan ko siya. Like mas titingnan ko ng in detail, no, yung sarili ko, and then I would say you are who you are regardless of what you have in your body, because that does not define you, parang ganon. And then so from there I would feel euphoric, no, so parang I would be able to do my tasks, parang masaya naman araw-araw. But I would say, no, na it's really different kasi ako recently lang din naman ako nag-medical transition. It took me a lot of, several years, no, before I decided. So I started when I was 30. So parang mga 2 years ago, ganon. But I would say, no, the difference now and before, comparing, no, I feel a lot better now. Like I feel a lot connected with myself.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
great.
Yeah,
yung
yun
the
din.
changes that I see, in my body, it feels great as compared to how I look at myself before. So it's different from, for example, from Riel.
Yes.
So parang alam mo yung feeling na ako, kasi dati umabot din ako sa point na like, okay, so I always discuss, no, with people na you don't have to act a certain way, or you don't have to be highly masculine to be a trans man or to be a trans masculine person. So parang dumating ako dun sa point na I was already debating. So do I need to medically transition, no, if that's the point? Because kung hindi naman pala necessary yon, no, so why do I have to do it?
Right.
So parang ang tagal din na inisip ko yon, and then hanggang sa umabot ako dun sa realization na yung medical transition ko is not really it's not really about my gender identity, but it's about how I would like to express myself more, no? So kumbaga parang judging from my parang my old self, no, parang I see it that way. Noong mga panahon na yon, I was never less of a man, no?
Right.
Um,
Right.
in my perspective, I was never less of a man. Of course, other people differently saw me, no? Pero ngayon, I would say ibang klase yung euphoria na nafe-feel ko with how I'm able to express myself the way I would really like to express myself. So more of like that.
That's a good sentiment. Kasi usually people are like, oh, I have to transition to affirm myself as this
Yeah.
gender. Pero
Or to pass.
or to
For some.
pass or to be valid as you
Right.
know.
May nabasa nga akong PubMat ba yun, o parang quote ba yun? Parang you don't really need to look like cisgender to be transgender.
Yeah.
Diba? Parang makes you think,
And yeah,
kasi iba-iba yan eh.
mm-mm.
Iba-iba yan ang expression. Yung kwento ni Rocky, iba sa kwento ko. Di ba? Parehas naman kami PFTM, parehas kaming cute. Pero iba siya. Mas gwapo siya. Ako,
In
pang
size.
baby face. Oo, pang... Yung si Mulak, tsaka si Vandot yon Vandot. Si Kuya Moraki, iba yan. Yung parang may pagka Rocky Balboa, ganyan. Bro. So yun, totoo yun. Yung parang paano nga ba na-alleviate yung dysphoria? Sa akin, more of mental clarity.
Mm-mm.
Stop looking things in the binary. You are you. Ikaw ay tao, person. Ikaw ay may gantong katawan. Female assigned at birth. Sige, sabihin natin, legally. Female ako.
Mhm.
Pero ako ay si Reyel. Wala akong gender most of the time. Parang ayoko to act a certain gender. I just labeled myself trans, mas, NB for easy access, ease of work,
Yeah.
ganon. So hindi na ako kailangan mag-define pa. So kung may ganitong chance to define, then I define it para yung ibang tao hindi makulong doon sa konsepto na okay, if I automatically trans is transition. No.
No.
You could medically transition, you could socially transition, you could mentally transition.
Yes.
Hindi lang siya doon sa, oy, FTM or MTF ka. No.
Mhm.
Yun ang gusto naming i-improve ni Rocky kahit sa community namin. It's so, pa rin, tumitingin sa dalawa lang.
Uh-huh.
Sobrang binary looking. So, beyond that, so we could make it more inclusive. So, dapat i-include natin tong mga definitions na to. Kasi tao din yan eh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like ako, sa LGBT, lagi ko nilalagay QIA+.
Same.
Kasi
Yes.
Yes.
I don't resonate with straight. I don't resonate with hetero. Kahit sabihin nila, ay lahat naman na naging jowa mo babae. No, my partner is non-binary. So you cannot tell me I'm straight. Kasi when you say you're straight, di ba, opposite of your gender.
Yeah.
Paano it's the same? I could proudly say I'm gay. Kasi parehas, di ba?
Yeah.
Debatable yan. Kaya parang ang point lang nito is talking about gender dysphoria is hindi mo naman kailangan i-alter ang katawan mo to have gender dysphoria. Para ako nung lumabas ako ng walang bra, takot ako. Ano ba? Bumabakat ba? Ganyan? Halata ba? Pag ba nag-tight ako ng suot, kita? Isip ko, pakinila.
Oo nga,
Ibang mga
actually.
matatabang lalaki, nalaki ng pwede. Malaki pa sa akin.
Sasabihin ko rin
Tapos
sana
sila
yun
ba
kanina.
nagbabra? Diba?
Yung mga
Yeah.
lalaki nga bakat-bakat
Excuse
lahat
me.
ng ano nila, di ba?
Diyos ko, diba?
Very
Talagang,
fitted.
ano naman?
Exactly.
Bakit ang babae kailangan magbra?
Mhm.
Bakit yung mga cis women din na gustong hindi magbra? Sabihin ng bastos mo naman. Bakit ka nagpapakita ng laman?
Iba ikaw yung bastos na tinitignan
Yun,
mo.
bodily autonomy. Diba kaya ka binabastos? Kasi wala kang bra.
Excuse me.
Yung ang balot na balot
Tama.
diba? Binabastos pa din.
Tama.
So yun ang akin, parang bodily autonomy.
Bodily
Yung ibang
autonomy.
trans, nagbabind, nagpo-post, nagpapatop surgery, bottom surgery. Doon nila nakukuha yung gender euphoria and that's okay. For themselves, for their happiness. Diba? Hindi mo naman kailangan gawin yun kung masaya ka na eh.
Yeah, that's really
Parang,
that's really correct,
diba?
no, yung parang kasi there's different ways naman in expressing your transness, no, as far as the trans community is concerned. I mean, for those people na syempre parang yung how they express themselves ay highly masculine, no, or parang there are certain types of parang body features that they would like to see sa mga katawan nila, no. Ako sa totoo lang hindi masama 'yon, okay? That is not wrong. What is wrong is you invalidate
Yeah.
other people just because you don't look alike, 'di ba? Or you don't,
Yeah,
Yes.
diba?
that's true.
That's the point, because
Yes.
sometimes there are a lot of trans men, no, na parang medyo and I'm sorry, pero kasi this is a fact, no, na parang there are a lot of masculine trans masculine people or trans men
Here comes the tea.
na parang
Sting.
Literally.
at saka na-offend sila, like kumbaga parang if you talk to them, no, about the different, I mean, even yung transness actually is very diverse. No, so there are some people na if you talk to them about it, parang they get offended, no, parang kasi they feel,
Uncomfy.
yeah, they feel na somehow they are invalidated, but they are not, no, you are not I mean, they are not being invalidated, no. The way you see yourself, kung paano mo gustong i-express yung sarili mo, there's never wrong, no, in that. Yun lang yung ano doon, problema doon if you insist that there has to be a certain look, no, for you to pass as a person or pass as a trans. That's the wrong thing there. Yun yung
Yeah.
Having your opinions down someone else's throat, like telling them they
Yeah.
Maraming ganon. Kaya nahihirapan din ako to embrace my own transness. Kasi nga bukod sa mataba ako, may mga transfits, may group doon, Rocky. Transfit, di ba? Sabi ko, paano pag mataba? Transfat.
Wait.
That's beautiful.
Diba?
Yes.
Diba? All bodies are beautiful,
Yes.
diba? May mga nagpapabigote. Diyos ko, sabi ko, Lord, Makati sa mukha, hindi ko gusto. Nag-try din ako na mag-minoxidil. Aminin ko na mukha rin akong tanga. Hindi ko siya tinuloy. Bukod sa mahal-mahal, parang kadiri. Yun na nga, parang yun na nga, pag nag-i-impose tayo na kung ano dapat itsura ng iba. Tapos, problematic din yung term na pretty.
Right.
Kasi may assumption na agad na all masculine trans men would undergo GHHT or gender affirming hormone therapy. Hindi. Walang ganon. Siguro pretty, cute, ganyan. Pretty. Pero yung lahat, i-assume mo na parang, hi, Riel, you're pretty. Parang, no, no. Hindi. Kasi hindi naman ako magtiti.
Right.
Parang, yun nga, yung nakakaanong assumption na kaya nakakadagdag din ng dysphoria. Kaya tuloy, may peer pressure. Kaya tuloy, pag pupunta, chat kami, papamember ng PFTM, hi, kailan po kaya pwede mag-start ng tea? Hi, kailan po kaya mag-order ng tea? Hi, ano po, pwede po ba ako magsimula ng tea kahit walang prescription? Pero transness is not about tea.
Yeah.
Kahit siguro tanggalin natin yung,
Right.
yung tea, ransness na siya.
Ransness.
Pero that's not the point. Ransness.
Yeah.
Pero that's not the point. Testosterone is not the point.
Yeah.
If magiging factual, ang testosterone, ginawa siya for cis men na mababa ang sperm count. Kung manggigipkeep at manggigipkeep tayo, di ba? At totoo lang, kahit ibang gender identities or persons of diverse OG, gusto nila mag-testosterone, why not? It's not limited to the trans community itself. 'Di ba? Parang hindi tayo, oh my God, kami lang trans pwedeng mag-ano, trans man. May lesbian nag-inject, gusto niya maging masculine. Hindi yan, hindi, tomboy ka eh. Kaya nagkakaroon ng away. 'Di ba? Kasi masyadong yung pinapasaksak sa utak niyo na, I'm better than you. My expression is only limited to my gender identity and not yours.
It's sad na may gatekeeping
Makes
pa
you
rin
think,
within the community. Kahit
Yeah.
dapat tayo
Right.
mag-understand
And
with
especially
each
if you're
other.
just trying to alleviate the dysphoria.
Oo
So,
nga
ang
eh.
hirap. Pero
We're
Mm.
struggling as it is, no?
Yeah, I want to point out the one where both of our speakers mentioned about how it's a mental battle trying to I mean kahit let's say external yung trigger for dysphoria, to alleviate it is actually a mental battle with ourselves, within yourselves, within
Right.
ourselves. And it takes a lot just for yourself to fight it when it hits, and then you have to fight. So syempre i-reconcile mo sa sarili mo, tapos i-reconcile mo pa sa iba.
Mm.
oo, ako, dati malakas ang dysphoria ko pag meron akong trigger warning mens.
Ah.
Sobra. As in, 'di ba, may hormonal an influx pa yan, imbalance
Yeah,
kasi
yeah,
nga yung
yeah.
estrogen ko nagwawala. Parang I feel wala ako dun, hindi ko yung katawan. Parang lagi kong tinitweet no'n dati bata or siguro mga high school. Hi, hello po sa lahat ng mga gay men, mga trans women, nagbebenta po ako ng puke. Totoo, parang trade
Oh my
in,
God.
slightly used, gano'n. Ginagawa ko siyang biro. Kaya tignan mo, palabiro ako kasi yun yung ano ko,
Coping
defense
mechanism.
mechanism ko siya for ano, kasi kung hindi ako nagbiro,
Malulungkot na lang.
kaya oo, alam yan ni Rocky kahit sa GC namin ng PFTN, puro kagaguhan na sinasabi ko. Kasi nararamdaman ko minsan yung dysphoria ko din. Minamaliit ko lang siya as biro. Pero pag ako na mag-isa, lalo pag meron na
Ah,
akong
yeah.
ang hirap,
Iyak,
guys, ang hirap
iyak na.
guys. Lalo ano, wait lang. Open ba tayo sa mga bata? 18 plus?
Yeah.
Yes.
We can just bleep
Grabe pa,
anything if it's not
SPG.
Lalagyan
okay.
na lang namin ng
Hindi,
warning.
okay, aminin nyo, yung pag you're doing it with yourself and with
Okay, yeah.
others,
Mm.
you feel that something is missing. Ang lakas niyang makalungkot. Parang iisipin mo, bakit na kaya wala akong ganun so that I could have kids? Kasi I'm not willing to have kids if uterus and I would carry it. Para sobrang dali if you have that organ. Parang something is missing. I'm not full. Ganon. Lalo siya nakakalungkot. Yung parang pag-iisipin, I wanna have a kid, start a family. Yung parang you want to think the heteronormative way, malulungkot ka. Tapos iisipin mo ulit, okay, kaya pala ako ginawang ganito kasi I have purpose. Kung siguro hetero ko at cis, wala akong masyadong flavor.
Wala
Kaya
akong
ano siguro
masyadong
iniisip
flavor.
ko, parang wala akong masyadong
Sarap
personality.
nito.
So, gano'n na lang. Parang masaya na ako, I have kids, ganyan. Meron akong, pwede ako ikasal dito, di ba?
Uy, alam mo, sa
Gusto
totoo,
mo, mama.
sa totoo lang
Oh,
naisip ko din yan. In fact, parang just
Honestly.
recently, no, parang sinasabi ko sa partner ko, sa girlfriend ko na parang, alam mo, minsan iniisip ko, parang ano din pala, parang blessing in disguise din
oo.
na parang I was born this way kasi tawag dito parang I feel na kung pinanganak akong ano, for example, cishet male,
Mm-mm.
or that, 'di ba, cishet male ako. I think isa ako dun sa mga pinaka-toxic na lalaki sa buong mundo. Alam mo 'yon, yung parang ganon.
Kasi galing ka sa ano yung culture niya kasi sa mga Meranao, di ba?
Right.
Sobrang,
Oo.
ano siya sa patriarchy talaga.
Yes.
Meranao kasi ang Kuya Rocky, no?
Talagang favored
So,
yung
sobrang,
men.
oo.
Parang
Robin Padilla levels of toxic.
mga ganon. Kaya nga 'di ba nga, kumbaga parang sa amin nga 'di ba, men can marry, 'di ba, up to 4 women, 'di ba? So, titingnan mo 'yon kasi ano 'yun kumbaga nasa ano naman 'yon, nasa ano ng Islam yung polygamy.
Nasa
Diba?
Sharia law.
Although parang 'di ba, you would see then the inequality there, 'di ba?
Yeah.
Kasi kung okay naman pala yung faith no doon sa polygamy, why is it not allowed for women, 'Diba? So talaga makikita mo how men are favored. Actually, not just in my community, but in general, no, sa Muslim
The broader
communities.
sense.
Muslim communities, yes, and sa kahit saan ka pumuntang society, talagang they favor men, 'di ba, over any other gender identity.
Kumbaga kahit anong relihiyon, kahit saan ka tumingin,
Yeah.
'di ba? Parang pag priestess, bakit siya nag-aano ng religion, babae siya? Or halimbawa, ayan, mainit na issue ngayon yung yung cheating, yung mga chismosa, change oil. Si girl ang
Ah,
sinasabihan ng
mm-mm.
masasamang
Mm-mm.
salita. The girl was being attacked rather
Oh,
than
yeah.
the guy. I
Ay,
mean, both parties are in
The-
fault. Pero
exactly.
why is it the girl is in jeopardy na, oh
Tapos
my
yung
God,
sasabihin nila, no?
slut, pokpok.
Di,
'Di
lalaki
ba?
yan. Normal lang yan sa lalaki na maghanap ng ibang
Oo, normal lang
babae.
sa lalaki, fiancé. Kasi hindi mo nabibigyan ng atensyon yung needs niya kasi nasa ibang bansa ka, kasi hodang hindi mo, 'di ba? Parang lagi kang merong utang na loob
Mm.
sa patriarchal
I
society na
roll.
kailangan mong punuin. Nanay ka ba nun? Parang 'di
Oo
ba?
nga.
Nanay ka ba nun?
Oo nga.
Actually, pag
Like
tiningnan
men,
nyo,
men are like boys, no? Man-child.
Yeah.
Pero women are expected to be women, not girls. So may
True.
babae
Mataas ng
ka,
standard.
babae ng tao.
Yeah. Tapos,
Pero 'pag
yeah.
lalaki pwede maging bastos. Kasi lalaki 'yan.
Especially, they use the excuse na, well, girls are more emotionally mature,
Excuse me.
younger, so, men are parang excuse
Yung
to
boys will
act
be boys.
a certain
Boys will
way.
be
right.
boys.
Actually,
Yeah.
How
sa
boys will be
Locker
boys.
room talk.
Tapos ang
Oh,
dami
actually
ko
sa trans
naririnig.
men,
Yeah. Sorry.
right? Ay, sorry. So, no, I just want to say na actually sa trans men community, the reason why the reason why some trans men, no, see parang femininity, kumbaga, so kung trans man ka but you are still feminine, no, parang they police you, no, of your of your gender identity and expression, is that very fact kasi na our society is programmed, no, to treat women as a lower class citizen, no, parang
mahina.
parang the society see parang women as less of a human being, no, than men. So that's exactly the point why even sa trans community toxic masculinity exists.
Right.
Kaya din ako nagkaka-dysphoria.
Mm.
Parang kasi yung katawan mo, sinasabi kasi na feminine siya. Bodies are bodies. Nasa sa utak mo yan kung
Paano?
sino
Yeah,
ka,
yeah,
'di ba?
yeah, yeah.
Parang yun nga, yung 'pag makita ko sa community namin, kahit hindi naman nila sabihin na Rocky, alam ko naman nakakaiba ako. Like, buti lang dito yung mga kaibigan ko, si Rocky, sila JD, yan. Si Rocky talaga nakakwentuhan ko din. Parang sharing my trans experience, mas dysphoric talaga dahil may toxic masculinity. Na parang ang tagal ko siya bago iyakapin yung femininity ko as something that is my edge, my strong points rather than my masculine points. Parang how would you think na being masculine makes you stronger?
Right.
'Di ba? Parang what is that
I
concept come
know.
from? Parang how
It's
could you
inner
say na
strength.
masculine,
Yeah.
macho, strong? Or in fact, I could be feminine, I could be a trans masculine and still be strong, stronger
Exactly.
than your fragile masculinity.
Ooh.
Right.
Oh, your fragile
Right.
masculinity.
'Di ba? 'Di ba kahit mga trans men,
Mm-mm.
Rocky, parang, oh my God, bakla. Gago ka ba?
In fact, ako nga parang minsan, no, there are syempre hindi na tayo magne-name drop. pero there are
Syempre pag mga friends, in-name drop, pag may
pero
mga
pero
ganyan.
there are actually trans men, for example, or even cis men friends, no, na sometimes parang tinatanong nila ako, gay ka ba? Or bakla ka ba? Just because, no, because sometimes parang may mga times kasi na I feel comfortable parang being a bit feminine. Alam mo 'yon, parang alam mo kahit naman mga highly masculine na cis men, there are times actually na they express, 'di ba, femininity
Yeah,
as
yeah.
some form of femininity, parang ganun.
Yeah.
Pero
Yeah.
yun, doon sa mga sobrang no, yung mga namumulis, minsan tinatanong nila ako na parang, gay ka ba or bakla ka ba? Parang ganun. Okay lang naman. Parang may ganong may
That's-
ganong assumption lagi. Of course, there's nothing wrong with being gay. In fact, parang sinasabi ko na I'm not sure, but
Tama, ako
Yeah.
din.
sa ngayon, I identify as a heterosexual, but I may be bisexual. We don't know. Diba? Parang-
Hindi
Right.
natin sure. Kaya nga 'di ba, sabi ko, pag namumulis Rocky, akab 'yan. Alam niyo na
Let's
'yan.
go.
Let's go.
'Di ba? Kasi ang kapulisan ay isang instrumento at isang malaking ebidensya ng talagang prevalent patriarchy and misogyny. Kaya makikita mo 'di ba, pag may mga trans fan ako nakikita nagpupulis.
Oh my gosh.
Yun na lang, hindi na lang ako
Yeah.
magre-react.
Gosh.
Oo. Kasi nasabihan na rin akong bakla ka ba? Oo.
Hindi mo tayo.
I mean, wala pa ako naging jowang cis man or trans man. Pero willing ako sa trans man. Kasi, sa organs kasi medyo iffy ako. Hindi naman sa pagiging
Yeah, it's
transphobic or
preference.
homophobic.
Yeah.
Minsan kasi yung preference din, attach yan to prejudice. Pero sa akin kasi, takot ako kasi sa organ na pahaba.
I see.
So,
Okay.
yeah, parang
Nasa-stress yung mga bata.
ipakiano na lang to na 18 plus.
Okay.
Parang naging discussion din kasi yan, na parang yung bang preference over trans men and trans women, yung preference ba doon ay prejudice ba or just preference? As in yung choice lang nila, personal choice. Kasi nakakadagdag din sa dysphoria. Ipasok nyo kasi yung dysphoria. Some trans men, natatakot silang makipagrelasyon sa cis-het women.
Right.
Kasi isipin ng cis-het women,
Parang
lesbian ako.
parang dati nga I had this question na parang is there a possibility na parang pwede kang ma-in love sa for example cis man or a trans man or any man, parang gano'n. Tapos parang ako, I was like, I'm not sure, but maybe. I mean, we can't really tell, no? And then parang the person said, so ano pang point na nag-identify ka as a trans man? So parang ako, I was
Excuse
like,
me? What?
what? Sige.
Napatayo sa upuan ang kapatid nating si Yas.
Pero sa totoo
Medyo-
lang, sorry. Pero sa totoo lang, there's
Ago.
nothing wrong with actually discussing body parts. No, in fact, ako advocate ako na dapat as early as kinder dapat dinidiscuss yung
Yes,
yung
me too.
diba?
Mm-mm.
Body
Yeah.
parts.
Proud naman ako na meron akong pamangkin dito. Yan, nasa harapan ko. Nag-aaral. May online class kasi. Wide naman kami doon. Open naman about stuff. And alam na rin yung mga, sinusoji ko din siya. Katuwa nga eh. Yung mga bata ngayon, ang dali nilang mag-out
Right.
or hindi sila nag-out. Just good. Basta pumasok sila sa school, I like girls, I like boys. Ganun.
Easy.
I like girls. Yeah, oo. Magta-13 na siya eh. So, yun na, may angst. Pero ang cute kasi, mas madali sa kanilang mag-navigate through Soji.
Yeah.
Kasi mas bukas, accessible na sa Google kung nagtatanong sila about their gender identity, sexual orientation, expression. Widely na siya. Yun din para sa mga trans kids, di ba? Pasok natin yun. Yung bodily parts. Kaya nga nung puberty,
Puberty.
doon talaga nagsa-start yan.
Actually,
Parang ako personally, nung bata pa ako, flat chest pa. Tapos nung lumalaki, parang
What is
something
this?
is growing inside
What
you
is
na
this?
there's something
oh my God, I
wrong.
felt that.
Oh, it's growing
Parang,
with you.
Yes, parang gusto kong tanggalin. May mga times na gusto ko siyang slice.
Yeah.
Feel nyo
Yeah.
ba yun? Parang,
Yeah,
ang
get it.
init. Gusto ko
Oo.
itaas na lang gano'n. Ay, nung bata ako, hirap na hirap ako magsuot ng bra, baby bra. Kasi parang bakit? Kailangang itago. Ang init.
Right?
Doon ako talaga.
Right,
Parang,
good point. Why do I have to be
shame.
ashamed of it if it's growing on me?
Oh,
Right?
Why do we have to wear a bra? di ba?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yun na nga din eh. Ipasok din natin yun na why do women or trans men or people with boobs have to wear a bra? If there are research na sinabi mas okay sa health ng taong hindi mag-bra. Is it for the male gaze?
It's always the male gaze.
Oh,
Ano.
Rocky mo.
Ako, ang masasabi ko lang dyan ay, actually, parang you would wonder, no? Kasi, di ba, why cis men, no, are able to parang flaunt their bodies like, as if
Oh.
nothing is wrong with them, di ba?
Shirtless.
But for women, we police women, no, or any people who have body parts of that of a woman or female, no. So
Oo.
parang ang ano diyan, ang ano ko naman diyan is there are a lot of women who are empowered enough, no, parang they don't care, parang oh, I don't care, and even men, no, na who have these kinds of bodies din na parang for example si Reyel, 'di ba, parang oh, I don't care, parang this is how I would like to parang express myself, comfortable siya ganon. But there are a lot of women too, no, na minsan nagiging form of security din kasi for them yan, kumbaga pagsusuot ng mga extra clothes, no, to for example to cover their bodies kasi nga 'di ba, dahil ang sistema kasi ay parang the world is programmed na women can be sexually harassed or abused on the basis of their bodies,
Tama.
'di ba? Kaya nagiging ano
Right.
din yan, nagiging dahilan din yan.
Yeah.
Napaisip ako.
Punot dulo talaga yon.
Mm.
Yung patriarcha talaga ang punot dulo.
Yeah.
Pag nagkukwentuhan tayo, parang doon lang tayo.
Dun lang
Doon naman
umiikot.
tayo nag-ano.
Umiikot lang tayo.
Dun lang
Dapat.
nagbabalik doon.
Isang semantic web na parang ikot-ikot lang, gaganon lang siya. Doon din sa gitna. Diba?
So dapat the advocacy should be destroy patriarchy.
Yes, topple the
Oo.
patriarchy.
Dapat may intersectionality.
Intersectional
Kumbaga,
feminism.
Yes, that's what
Yes.
I was
For
saying
men and
kanina.
women.
Yes.
And for trans
Yes.
people.
exactly.
Especially
For everyone,
like, yeah,
diba?
what you guys were saying na parang they police how trans men are supposed to look like and they can't
Right.
be feminine or stuff like that. And I was like, wow, that could be solved by intersectional feminism where we accept men
Right.
of all body types, of all
Right.
expressions. And they're never questioned for being men kasi, you know, we accept them. And I was like, wow, if only we had that. Pero kasi, ayun nga, like you were saying, we're so heavily influenced by the patriarchy and the people on top are all old gross men
Right.
who don't want to change anything. So,
I
you know.
totally agree.
Masabid na yung mga tatay nyo.
Yeah.
Mga batang to. Ako din, nasabi din ako, hindi ako old man. Diyos ko.
Yeah.
Mm. Pero babalik tayo
Mm-mm.
dun sa movement, lalo sa trans men, na hindi dapat maiwan yung pag-smash ng patriarcha at
Tama.
ng feminismo. Yun yung gusto kong kay Rocky, na gusto ko sana magkaroon ng capacity building, educational webinars for members and also trans brothers na i-discuss itong feminismo para magkaroon sila ng sensitivity na hindi sila panay post ng kung ano-ano, di ba, Rocky?
Ooh. Some more tea?
More tea.
And they have to understand that feminism is actually for everyone. You don't have to be
yes.
a woman to be a feminist.
Yes.
Yes. We're striving for
Yes.
equality for all. Like, yeah. Baka kasi may word na fem.
Mag-basic lang. Oo nga eh. Para pag naisip lang fem, oh my God, hindi naman ang babae.
Yeah.
Kasi isipin, paano naman kami mga lalaki?
May dictionary po. Search nyo na lang yung ibig sabihin nun.
Alam mo yung kukulot yung buhok ko dito talaga sa stress ko. Mamaya afro na ako dito. Parang what about men? Di gawa ka ng programa mo. Kaya so laging ginagamit sa discussion. What about men? What about men? Okay ko sa'yo.
You're not
Sa nanay
suffering.
mo.
What are you talking about?
Exactly. Parang paghahanap sila ng
Oppressed. Oh my
ng point of discussion lang para ma-counter yung arguments of feminism. Pero they don't really care about their fellow men na
Yeah.
nahaharas.
Mm-mm.
They just usually, pare naman, no, kumbaga, manok ka, tapos yung ano, yung bigas na ilalapit sa'yo. Pero,
What kind
Actually,
of
ano kayo?
analogy?
that's very true.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mano kayo?
Yung ano nga,
It's very sad nga that those the same men who like use na parang, oh, men get oppressed too. Sila yung very pretty sure na hindi sila yung same na people who care about
right,
men's mental health, men's problems. They just use it to argue
Yeah.
against
As an
women's
excuse.
problems, which is we should just work together.
Yeah, because they don't want to give up the power they have
why do you want to go
as
yes,
against?
cis het men on top
right.
of the
Yeah.
world.
And they very much enjoy no
Yeah.
yung repercussions ng discrimination against
Mm-mm.
all other gender identities. So kaya parang ay threatened sila na
It's their
magkaroon
fragile
ng equality.
masculinity.
Oo. Ay, nako.
So
Nasuset
you,
na
you
naman
see, yeah, so you see how gender dysphoria can go a long
Babalik at
way
babalik.
when you discuss it, right?
Yeah.
Sabi nga sa isang kanta, no, bumabalik, heto na naman, di ba?
Mhm.
Yeah. It's actually a good point
Mm-mm.
na gender dysphoria is also has ties or roots in patriarchy. Na you can get gender dysphoria because you're being policed into this certain stereotype of what you should be, whether you are man, woman, and or trans even.
Actually, kahit trans woman kaya di ba
Yeah.
parang sabi nila, parang may passage na we should respect trans women even though they don't look feminine. Parang
Yeah.
trans
Of
women
course.
don't owe you femininity.
Exactly.
Parang
Yeah.
pag mama magboses,
Very
parang
true.
hindi ka naman babae, sir. Tapos isa-sir mo pa. Parang
Yeah, that's very
yun
true.
lang yung mahirap. Kasi kaya nagkaka-dysphoria din, hindi rin siya internal kung iisipin mo.
It's
Hindi mo siya
external.
naisip ng ikaw lang.
Mm-mm.
Hindi ka pinanganak ng nagising ka na, oh my God, may dysphoria agad ako. Bakit
Actually,
ka nagka-dysphoria?
Actually.
What were your triggers?
Externals.
parang it actually developed. Now you think about it. Maybe we weren't born kasi pag bata ka pa, you weren't born
Wala
with
naman tayong
you weren't
alam.
tainted yet, and
Yeah.
like with all these
Tabula
ideas.
rasa.
That's only growing up na mo you develop dysphoria.
Yeah. Wow.
Oh,
Yeah,
At
kasi
saka ako in my perspective yung gender yung dysphoria actually hindi siya nangyayari lang sa trans community. Even other gender identities experience
Yes,
that. Like
yes.
dahil for example for cis men, no, because they are ang tawag dito, they are seen or there are standards, no, that kailangan sila matangkad, kailangan lean yung mga
may
katawan,
bigote.
kailangan
Yeah.
may mustache, kailangan deep yung voice, kailangan moreno. So there are a lot of cis men actually who also alter their bodies to just to pass that standards, no, or to qualify to that standards. Parang ganon.
Right,
Same
cis women too. There's
yes.
Yeah.
kaya I wanted,
Nag-alter ng katawan, papaputi. Kasi sabi, mas maganda daw, mas puti. Then
implants.
mataba
Yeah.
siya. Papayat. Tapos nagpapayat, sabi, ba't ang payat mo? Diba?
Yeah, actually, I never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
Na cis het people can also experience gender dysphoria. Akala ko lang talaga it's just the whole brainwashing lang.
No, walang gatekeeping
Yeah,
nga.
I
Sabi
wanted to
ko,
confirm rin.
marami.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I know a lot of like cis het friends na parang struggle rin sa self-image nila. And they don't really know what it is. And I'm like, oh, they're talking, what they're describing is gender dysphoria. Like,
Yes,
yeah, and they don't
Yeah,
know it.
oo.
And yeah.
Like they
They
didn't
don't know it. They
notice that
don't know
it's
how to
gender
address it.
dysphoria.
Kasi wala silang alam dun. And like, I was thinking, maybe this episode could help them understand yun na parang, even cis het people get dysphoria because society has so many pressures and expectations na
Beauty
impossible. Yeah, it's
standards.
impossible to conform to, no matter how straight or how like cis you are, you know.
Right.
Mhm.
You know what's the best example that sets standards for how women should look like Miss Universe
Mm.
or mga pageantry, 'di ba?
Yeah,
Parang yun
pageant.
yung
Yeah.
yun yung talagang nagse-set ng mga dapat ganito yung tsura
Yeah.
mo.
Pero pag politiko, no, kahit ano na lang.
Kahit
Oo.
I wanted to.
Parang gaano ka kababa at gaano kataas ang standards mo. Gaano kataas, Miss Universe, gaano kababa, Philippine politics. 'Di ba? Parang ang taas-taas na hinihingi natin. Parang, bakit ganito yung pambato natin? Hindi ganyan. Ba't hindi ganito? Pero pag binoboto natin,
Dali lang.
'di ba?
Kahit
Parang,
sino na
wait.
lang tumakbo.
Kaya nga may nakaupo doon na matanda, 'di ba? Sinto-sinto. Nakakaapekto din yung administrasyon na 'to. Sa totoo lang, ito
Honestly.
ang pinaka naaalala ko. Kung naaalala ko yung iba, Gloria, wala namang ganitong klaseng kababuyan at kabastusan.
Yes. Like, not
Hindi
to this
ganitong
extent.
ka-misogynistic, hindi ganito ka-patriarchal. Kahit sabihin natin si Erap, may mga dirty jokes here and there. Pero hindi siya yung sasabihin na pag nakakita ka ng babaeng militante, barilin mo sa puke, ganun. Walang ganong mga pahayag. Kumbaga lalo sa administrasyon na 'to, sa rehimeng ito, naramdaman natin kung gaano kabastos ang patriarchy at kung 'di ba,
I mean,
dapat natin
Kung gaano
talagang iwaksi
kababa yung
macho
pagtingin
pasista
nila
nga
sa
sila, di
sa
ba?
feminine.
babae.
Yeah.
Oo, na sobrang tinatawag nga nila 'no, macho.
Macho pasista.
Ay naku.
Oh.
Kaya nga nakakadagdag, kaya yung mga ibang mga trans men na toxic masculine, may katambal yan.
Mm-mm.
Yung 3 letra, hindi ko
Ah,
na sasabihin.
okay. Yes.
Oo, may katambal yan. Kasi, yun na nga, they cling on to this kind of person as a persona for their quote-unquote masculinity that they find solace and comfort
Wow.
and sa arms ng ating tatay.
The 30. Yes. The 30.
Hindi ko na sinabi.
Hindi ko rin sinabi.
Sabi nga nung yung tawag dito yung bata na naglalaro ng COD ba yun? Parang din nasa school siya, may klase siya. Get that 30,
Yeah.
get that 30.
Yeah, get that 30, bro. Pero now that you
Up to
mentioned
30.
it, honestly, lumala yung gender dysphoria ko, like, since his regime started. Kasi, I'm scared of expressing myself the way I want to. Kasi,
Yeah.
what if I rub the wrong person the wrong way with how I look, how I talk, or how I dress?
And you could,
I could get in so much trouble.
Right.
Alam mo yun?
Yeah,
There are some
yeah.
days when I
Oo.
really want to dress feminine. When I just want to, be feminine. Tapos I'm scared. I can't even express that. Kasi, aside from getting catcalled or something like that. I mean, I know I don't look typically Filipino, and that's even a higher risk for me. Like, men follow me sometimes, and that scares me. Tapos ngayon, like, I know that no one's gonna be there to help me or to save me if I get in a situation like that. Kasi akab nga. You know? it's
Yeah,
it's been
exactly.
such a horrible thing, like being queer here, like right now, in this, like, in this
Situation.
situation, yeah. Or like,
Ang lalim pala,
yeah.
no?
Yeah.
Kung isipin mo, parang lang siya, yung corruption, yung kabastusan, pero hindi lang yung pagpatay.
Mm-mm.
Parang mas malalim pa doon.
Yeah,
Na gano'n na pala kalapot yung nangyari sa
exactly.
bansa natin na hindi lang pala natatapos sa karumal-dumal na gano'n. Meron pang mas karumal-dumal.
O kasi naman
Ay.
human rights issues are interrelated, 'di ba?
Yeah, exactly. Oo.
Interconnected. So kaya you don't, kumbaga, sabi nga 'di ba, if one
Mhm.
right is violated means several violations of human rights, because hindi naman for example may na-violate na isang karapatan, hindi naman ibig sabihin na yun lang yun. There are a lot of
There's
Kumbaga,
layers.
ang sabi nga natin sa human rights, diba, hindi naman napagtagni-tagni yan. Hindi mo pwedeng paghiwa-hiwalayin yan. Hindi mo pwedeng kunin yung isa tapos andun pa rin yung isa.
Tama, tama.
Magkakadikit yan. Kumbaga kung tinanggalan mo ng isa, para yan domino. Domino effect. Wala na yan lahat. Diba?
Right.
Grabe. Dysphoria yan tayo. Nasa human rights at tayo, guys.
I mean, it
Yeah.
evolves. Pero
Yeah. Pero yeah, kahit pumunta tayo from gender dysphoria to human rights, it's, you still have the right to express your body without fear and repercussions.
Mm.
So, it's still,
it's part of bodily autonomy. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, because it's a human rights concern.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Hindi siya parang kapritsyo lang namin na gusto namin mabago yung kaisipan na para lang wala lang. Gusto lang namin extra privileges, extra rice, ganyan.
No,
Hindi
it's
naman
not
siya
that.
kanin na dinidemand mo na kanin lang na extra rice. No, extra rice hindi rin. Kasi pag marginalized, hindi mo dinadagdagan ng karapatan, ipinapantay mo lang doon sa
Yes, it's
pribilehiyo na
equity.
nararanasan ng
Yes.
mga
It's
taong to
justice.
sa taas.
Mm-mm.
Diba?
Pero
But
tama,
yeah.
tama. Like, I don't think people think of it that way. Kaya we're rallying for like rights to like
Ano naman?
Soji, equality
So,
bill.
equality bill.
Soji equality bill. It's not just for us, it's for everyone. And like we keep saying this over and over again, but people don't understand it. Pero yun, it's so that we're all
Yeah.
safe to express ourselves the way we want to, and that we know that our rights won't be, stepped on if
And
we're
it's like,
being who we are.
anong point na sabihan kung may karapatan ka, kung may rights ka, if hindi ka naman protected, if your rights aren't protected by the law itself.
True.
Because rights have to be
True.
translated
True.
into laws, diba?
Exactly.
Kahit yung laws, parang malabnaw pa din, di ba? Hindi pa rin yun serves as protection. Kumbaga, hindi na nasa-serve yung rationale or yung spirit of the law.
Walang
Diba?
enforcement.
Kumbawa, yung mga anti-discrimination ordinances sa cities nyo, pero hindi naman siya properly enforced. It's as good as nothing.
Right.
Diba?
It's just paper
Naglagay
at
ka
that
pa.
point.
Yeah.
Well,
Diba? Tapos
actually,
yung mga penalty, diba?
oo, sa totoo lang, yung sa mga ordinances kasi, the problem with most of our LGUs, no, they just comply to inclusivity. Kumbaga parang and to diversity. So parang para lang masabi na okay, meron
Na
kami, but
meron.
they don't actually implement it well. Marami nga diyan wala ngang IRR eh. 'Di ba?
Paano mo i-implement? So, parang nagsulat ka sa pader, di ba? Tapos wala lang. Tititigan mo lang siya.
We are equal.
And even
ganun.
safe spaces, di ba? We have IRR, di ba, Rocky?
Hmm.
Most of the time, hindi aware for example, workplaces about the policies. Kasama kasi ako dun sa Facebook group ng HR. Bilang dati kasi ako nagtrabaho sa labor. Meron doon na parang pinupulis nila na lesbian, na parang gusto daw niyang magsuot na masculine na uniform.
Why
Parang
not?
bibigyan daw ng penalty. Parang, di ba kayo aware na may safe spaces act even in workplaces na even homophobia is defined there in transphobia? Parang yun nga kahit yung mga ibang agencies, magsusumbong ka na I was discriminated in relation to Safe Spaces Act. Hindi masyadong impactful yung magiging penalty. Kahit sa ordinances, ang fine is like 2,000, 1,000 to 2,000. Kung medyo di-discriminate na lang kita araw-araw, magbabayad ako.
Tama.
It's
Kung
not
gusto nila,
this
gagawin
is not
nila.
the spirit of the law.
Yeah.
To be honest,
Parang hindi talaga protection.
it's such a cheap price. It's a cheap,
To pay. For dehumanizing someone. Sa tingin mo,
Yeah.
maayos na yun ng 1,000 pesos? Diyos ko.
Exactly.
Sorry, I'm stressed out.
Kaya nga nakakalungkot. Kaya we have to have the comprehensive law for that. It's the national law, which is the Soji Equality Bill. Kasi yung Anti-Discrimination Bill, only a portion of Soji is there. But it's general law for anti-discrimination. Di ba, Rocky? Parang it's only touched there. Ang pinaka-comprehensive talaga is Soji Equality Bill. Na dekada na pong inuupuan ng Kongreso.
Yeah.
Ah,
Grabe. Gender dysphoria, the rights,
It's
intersectional feminism, and patriarchy.
yes,
Ang dami.
it's all interconnected. We can't escape it.
Kasi grabe yung dysphoria, hindi, ano yun eh, a lot of people have been experiencing it and it's been there for so long. And if you actually think
Yeah.
about it, it's also systemic,
Right.
systemically produced
Kahit
and
matagal na,
triggered.
kahit matagal na ng mga trans or persons of diverse OG, hindi nila nare-realize yun until na mag-click na lang sa utak mo or depende rin kasi yun sa level of awareness mo, no? Iisipin na yung dysphoria mo is coming from you talaga, na you being your gender identity, not knowing, notwithstanding na there's an external factor talaga contributing to that.
Grabe na, ano talaga ako. Yeah.
My mind,
Yung mind ko.
it hurts.
Ah, wala na yung brain stress ko, tapos na. Dalawa na uli siya.
Pero going back to maybe something smaller that we can do to help people who are experiencing gender dysphoria, as people who have experienced it and possibly is still experiencing it, what can you tell them to help them achieve like gender euphoria? Para at least may maitulong naman tayo. Kasi it's not like we can make
Tips.
the law for them, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, yung sa akin, syempre iba kay Rocky, is yung understanding na it's not your fault. Your body is not your fault. Yung maramdaman mo yung autonomy mo over your body, na magkonekta yung isip mo, it's the best thing. Kasi hindi mo kailangan baguhin yun eh. More of, sa akin, yung mentality mo, and yung nag-connecta na yung soul and body mo. Sobrang ganda. Sobrang ganda na nakakagaang ng pakiramdam. Lalo na kahit sabihin ko ang babaw lang na yung feeling na makalabas ka ng walang bra. Grabe yun. Nasi-share ko siya sa mga trans brothers ko kasi meron ding support group for trans men and trans masculine. Na alam mo yun, na-empower sila. So yung tip ko siguro is, you do you. Basta ka maging komportable. Kasi ang hirap kaya maging trans, tapos magbabinder ka, nagtitip, gusto mo magpa-top surgery, wala kang pera. Alam mo yun, nakakaano sa utak mo, sa mental health mo na bakit kaya ganito. Sisisihin mo pati yung Diyos. Kung medyo religious ka, bakit Lord?
Oh my
Ganito.
God.
Makikita mo yung mga top surgery na ng mga trans brothers mo. Sana all, laging teka, sana all ka, sana all. Eh, hindi nga lahat. It's a class issue. Sabi ko nga, intersectionality of the struggle. Hindi lahat may pang gender-affirming hormone therapy. Hindi lahat may pampa-surgery. Iintindihin mo din syempre yung mga kapatid mo, may pangkain, wala. So, paano nila i-alleviate yun kung wala yung source na pampatanggal ng dysphoria, gender dysphoria, ay costly. Ang binders, magkakano, libo.
Yeah.
Kung
So
yung quality. So, you will buy the lower class na mga binders na
Which isn't
delikado.
safe. Mm-mm.
You will put yes, exactly. Or gagawa ka ng mga alternative like yung sa suspender, nagawa ko yun. O yung gagawin yun. Kung medyo
Suspender.
mataba kayo, oo, yung supporter briefs. Ginupit ko siya, parang XL, yung brute, yung brand. Naipit lang yung likod ko, lalo akong inasma.
Oh no.
Yun, it's a health issue
Oh,
din.
no.
Right.
Yung alleviating gender
Mm-mm.
dysphoria is not only mentally here, but here, yung kinoconstrict natin. Tapos, yun, yung sa pagtitape, nagkaka-blisters. So, parang ako, kaya ako shinare yun na nakalabas ako ng kahit wala, na parang kaya nyo rin. Kasi may mga nagsishare na nahihirapan na sila mag-binder, mag-tape. Para sabi ko, hindi naman, kaya naman ng hindi. Kaya mo maging masaya ng hindi mo kinoconstrict kung ano yung andyan. Kasi andyan yan for a purpose.
Right.
Parang naintindihan mo na ginawa ka ng Panginoon na ganito, may purpose.
Right. Right.
Kung hindi ako ginawang ganito, boring ako. Oo, parang sinabi ko rin kanina, parang Ang bottom line lang dito is gawin mo kung ano yung magpapasaya sa'yo. Hindi yung sinabi ng magulang mo, sinabi ng kung sino, kundi yung ano talaga ang gusto mo. Kasi iba-iba tayo ng storya. Iba-iba tayo ng transness. So ayun, keep in mind lang yung health nyo, di ba?
Gusto ko na tuloy umiyak. Joke. Joke lang.
Actually, no, sinabi niya, it's
Ma'am
not your
Charo.
fault you were born with that body.
It's not your
It's
fault.
not
It's not your fault. Parang, grabe talaga yung pagkakaintindi ko na may reason. Bakit ako ginawang ganito? Kasi to make a difference.
Right.
Kasi if I am the default, I will be lazy eh. Ganito na ako eh.
True.
Isip na lang ko ibang personality. Like yung law student.
Ano
Ano,
yung
di ba? Di ba? Parang may rason siya.
Yeah.
Kumbaga, titingnan mo siya sa silver line.
Actually, yun, kumbaga, in short, ang sinasabi lang ni Reyel is, love your body, no? I mean, parang, regardless who we are, no? Parang, how we see ourselves, yung mga katawan natin ay part ng ating mga sarili, no? Ako, ang masasabi ko lang is, for me first, there has really something to do with differentiating, no? Siyempre, we go back to the basics. You have to differentiate yung SO, GI, at saka yung GE, right? So, kailangan maintindihan ng mga kasama natin, ng mga kapatid natin na gender identity is not the same as gender expression. And we can express ourselves, no, regardless kung paano natin gusto, as long as hindi tayo nakakasakit ng ibang tao, no? Parang just do whatever that makes you happy. Ganun lang 'yon. Kasi there are a lot of trans men na actually parang ang goal nga ay, for example, mag-undergo ng top surgery or magkaroon ng mga gender affirming healthcare or treatments, no? Kasi meron ding meron din kasing malalim na dahilan 'yon, no? Of course, like we always say, no, we get bullied for the bodies that we have. That's why, of course, you wouldn't want to be out there and expose ourselves, no, to bullying, to discrimination. So dahil nga there is no strong measure that would protect us, no, and plus with the lack of knowledge, kaya there are a lot of trans people who just di ba, prefer undergoing the needle nga, sabi nila, di ba, parang altering your body, changing some of your body parts. It doesn't only affirm, no, identities or expressions, but it also help from, yun nga, it protect you somehow, parang ganon. But again, we go back to dapat hindi nga ganon yung thinking. Sana hindi ganon. That's the final point of it, no. Ako, I really admire trans masc, for example, kagaya ni Reyel, no, na parang feeling ko nga they are already they have surpassed, no, or they are already beyond that, parang although nasabi niya naman kanina na there are also times na parang nagsasuffer pa rin siya from gender dysphoria. Because ako, for me, I wouldn't say na I'm totally out of it. I'm still there, and it's a struggle. Sometimes it's daily, 'di ba? Parang, and when you look at yourself in the mirror, parang you just want to change yourself completely just so you
Totoo
don't,
yun.
'di ba? Just so you don't get bullied or discriminated, parang on the basis of our body types. Yung mga ganon. And then parang siguro we also have to keep on sharing, no, what we know about the root causes of gender dysphoria. Kasi pag binalikan natin siya again, no, saan ba siya nanggagaling talaga? It's the
Iikot lang tayo ulit.
Diba? Right. So it's the patriarchic system that introduced us to these kinds of ideas na dapat we have to present ourselves in a certain way for us to again, parang quote-unquote qualify as a certain or as a whatever. Parang ganon.
Right.
So ganon lang yun. And then parang keep on affirming yourselves, no? Parang kahit hindi ka
Yes,
ina-affirm ng ibang tao,
self-affirmation.
it's very important that you get connected with yourself mentally. Kaya na sinasabi ni Reyel kanina, no? The strongest and the best person or the best ally that you can have is yourself.
Right.
True.
Actually.
So, if there is a person, no, na parang who will be there, who can parang really protect you from anyone, it's yourself. So kaya parang ganun lang, keep on affirming yourselves. Ako, sa totoo lang, I do I do meditation.
Yeah.
Pagka I feel dysphoric and I think I won't be able to go out of our home kasi nga parang nandun yung fear, ang nagsasurge yung anxiety, I do that. I meditate. I do yoga. Parang gano'n. So there are actually some activities that we can do to make us feel better. Yun, ganun lang. And then of course, no, if you have to talk to people, you can reach out to groups, support groups. There are, for example, PFTM is a support group, no? We serve as a support group. There are also other organizations there na pwedeng lapitan, no? You can reach out to talk to. So hindi kinakailangang solohin yung problema,
Yes,
yung
you're not
anxiety.
alone.
We can talk to people.
Ayun, thank you
Tama.
both so much for that wonderful advice. And thank you for being here today.
Walang anuman. It's our pleasure makipagchikahan.
Ulit.
At yun na nga, oo. Ang cute nga kasi two different sides kami ni Rocky. Kaya natutuwa ako kasi para makita niyo yung dysphoria on trans men and trans masculine. Iba siya ng methods, hindi walang hard and fast rule.
Right.
Kumbaga, it's all in you. Ikaw lang yun. May mga taong tutulong sa'yo, organizations. But in the end of the day, it's all you.
Yeah, it's an individual experience talaga.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Remember, you're never alone, even when it feels like your own mind is going against you. This has been Trans Speaks, and we'll catch you all again later.